Morning, Dave. Morning, everyone. I'll call to order the meeting of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. Would the Secretary please read the roll? Here. Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. We're going to reverse this. Thank you. The minutes of the May 7 and 8, 2009 meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, may I have a motion for their approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the report of the President of the Board. I think I've said everything that I have to say over the last 24 months. I would just like to thank all of you for your trust and confidence, and also for your willingness to say yes whenever I've asked you for committee work or doing anything else. I'd especially like to thank Vice President Pruitt, whose cell phone bill has doubled over the last 2 years. And Judy, I had an opportunity to thank your staff yesterday, and I want to use this opportunity to publicly thank you for all the great work that you do as Secretary for the Board. And I think that this world would be a better place if everyone had your skill at diplomatically telling somebody what to do and when it needs to be done. The next item is a presentation of a resolution of appreciation to Regent Elizabeth Burmester, and I would call upon Regent Walsh to make the presentation.
Thank you. And this is indeed my pleasure to present this resolution to Regent Burmester for many, many years of service. But first, let me make a couple comments about Libby. And when I first got here, I called everybody by their first name, and yet Judy kept calling me Regent Walsh, and I still like the first names. Libby's been in education her entire life. She's been involved in teaching and administration and caring about what's important about education. She has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She immediately went into the world of education. She taught in her early years under Milt McPike, who was our former colleague, who we missed dearly, at Madison East High School. When I went to school, I don't remember Madison East High School. We'll get to that. Subsequently, she taught and was the principal at Hawthorne Elementary School. And then, of course, the pinnacle of her administrative educational experience was being principal at none other than Madison West. And we have Brent Smith and Jeff Bartell and myself as graduates. That's 3-1. And we used to beat you like a drum in basketball and football. Actually, when I was in school, Madison East won the state basketball championship.
Oh, come on, you guys, stop it.
Libby was the principal, and it was a difficult job at Madison West because it's such a great institution, and she did a marvelous job. And as a result of that, in part because of the acclaim she received, she chose to run for a statewide office, Superintendent of Department of Public Instruction. Now, that's a constitutional statewide office, and in April of 2001, Libby received in excess of 60% of the votes and won. She did a marvelous job, and 4 years later, in 2005, she ran again, and she received 62% of the vote. Now, put that in perspective. There's lots of people who run for election in the state, statewide, and she has, in those 2 elections, received a greater percentage of the vote than any of our other great candidates that in the last 20 to 30 years. At the DPI, one of her goals was what we call the Promise for Education, New Wisconsin Promise, and this was to raise the achievement of all students and to close the achievement gap between the students of color and economically disadvantaged and their peers. And she did a marvelous job doing that. Subsequent to that, during that time, she also received honorary degrees from Beloit College and from Edgewood College. She's done a marvelous job there, but now she's gone on to another challenge, and that tells you something about her. That was a wonderful job, but she wants to do something else, and I'm so proud of her, and more important, she's been a wonderful colleague on the Board of Regents, and I think of her as a person of intelligence, experience that brought a lot of insight to us, maturity, patience, and patience with all of us. And I also enjoyed the fact that she never saw a tuition increase she enjoyed. But I know that as she goes off to a new role in her life, where revenue is important. I saw where she voted on the last tuition. It's really been a pleasure to work with Libby, and I'm sure all of you feel the same way. She's been on the board longer than any of us. She was here and greeted us when she arrived. All I can say is thank you for everything. Thank you for your input, your insight. Thank you for helping us through difficult times. Thank you for your leadership on the Education Committee and all that you've done. But most important, we're going to miss you. Thank you. I have a resolution to read, and I will read this resolution. Whereas, sorry, Jesus, it says whereas. Whereas Elizabeth Burmaster has served as the 25th state Superintendent of Public Instruction and an ex officio regent of the University of Wisconsin system from 2001 to 2009, and whereas Elizabeth has been an active member and past co-chair of the Wisconsin PK16 Leadership Council, which partners with business, industry, and government to create a seamless educational system from a pre-kindergarten through college, and has used her role as a regent to encourage the formation of regional PK partnerships across the state. And whereas she has championed as the state and national level access and opportunity in public education as moral and social justice issues, and as an economic imperative to prepare students to contribute to a vibrant 21st century society, including being a proponent of turning STEM to STEAM, that is, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, setting the arts in their rightful place in an integral part of a culture of creativity and innovation. And whereas she has helped select top UW leadership positions as a member of special chancellor search committees for UW colleges and UW Extension and UW Milwaukee, and has also assisted with the search and selection of the UW assistant president, and whereas Elizabeth has served on numerous standing committees, including chairing and vice chairing the Education Committee, chairing the Student Discipline and other Student Appeals Committee, and serving on the Executive Committee, the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee, and the Teaching Excellence Awards Committee. And whereas, in a role as State Superintendent, she launched the New Wisconsin Promise, a pledge that has expanded four-year kindergarten to 90% in her 8 years as superintendent, ensured small class sizes, increased professional development opportunities for teachers and other educational staff, and maintain the high PK-12 standards for which Wisconsin is known. And whereas she will soon bring her considerable educational and administrative talents and experience to her new role as president of Nicolay Area Technical College, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System hereby offers thanks and recommendation to Elizabeth Burmaster and commendation to Elizabeth Burmaster for her many life achievements, her outstanding support of students of all ages, and her exceptional service to the citizens of Wisconsin. Mark J. Bradley.
right. Thank you, folks, so much. Thank you, David. As you can see, I've spent a good part of my life, reconciling the east and west side of Madison. If we can figure that out, there can be world peace. My goodness. Well, it has been such a great privilege to serve as your state superintendent for 8 years, and as a part of that responsibility, to serve 2 governors, 2 presidents of the UW system in this role as a member of the Board of Regents. And as I reflect on the past 8 years, I have learned so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've learned so much experiencing the transitions and the changes and all the different leadership cultures of so many different boards of regents. I've served with 5 presidents of the Board of Regents, all of whom I greatly admire. I've met countless students who have made us all proud. I've learned from 24 chancellors and several interim chancellors. And I've learned from 1 Cheryl and 1 Judy. I've seen the successes and the challenges of diverse leadership styles throughout the system. And I've witnessed firsthand the tremendous commitment that the people of our great state and all who work for the UW system have to access and equity in quality public higher education. I have learned a great deal. Thank you. The past 8 years as a regent actually affirmed all that I had been taught about the UW system as a child. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I was the 4th of 5 children of parents for whom the UW was the foundation for all that they held dear. My dad was born in 1908 in Wisconsin, and he was raised on a farm near Sparta. He was the first in his family to attend high school. Then, after working for a year on the farm, he finally convinced his German father to let him go to the UW-Madison, which was not what the oldest son on the farm was expected to do at that time. At UW-Madison, my dad first lived in a room in the stock pavilion, and he took care of the animals, and he sent that paycheck back home to the farm to mitigate my grandfather's loss of his oldest son's labor. My dad was enrolled in the College of Agriculture, which was leading at that time in the world in the 1930s in innovation, in connecting chemistry and biology. And my dad said that he always had the greatest of teachers attending the UW during one of its most innovative periods during tough economic times, the 1930s. My dad went on to get his PhD in biochemistry, a new field, at UW-Madison. Indeed, as history would prove, he did have the greatest of teachers, Professor Elvium, Professor Steenbach, and Professor Ira Baldwin. And during those same years, the mid-1930s, my mother from De Pere, Wisconsin, had left her small town to attend the UW-Madison School of Music. She, too, always spoke of her great teachers, Professor Mills, Professor Morphy, Miss Eastman. The names of the concert and recital halls in which I would perform in the Humanities Building years later when I attended the UW-Madison School of Music. My mother was one of the first Tudor singers. She and her friends formed the first women's band because women weren't allowed in the marching band at that time. She performed on WHA radio in the early years, and she taught music in the public schools in Madison. And she always said that her great teachers at the UW inspired her to be a teacher. After Pearl Harbor, just as with the Manhattan Project, top scientists were summoned to serve their country in the war effort. my dad was summoned to Maryland by Dr. Ira Baldwin, who had been his professor at Madison. And that's what moved my Midwestern parents to Maryland, where they raised their 5 children in a neighborhood of scientists, many of whom were Madison PhDs. Amidst an array of private colleges, schools, and universities in the East, I was raised with the understanding that the best education one could receive was in Wisconsin. Everything was better in Wisconsin because of the education system. Government was better, the environment, even ice cream and cheese. My older siblings left Maryland to attend the UW, and when I graduated from high school, my dad accepted a position at UW-Madison's Food Research Institute. He returned to Madison with his family to do his best and his most creative medical research with botulinum toxin. It was my parents' dream to return to the state where everything was better because of the education system. My mom died before I was elected, but my dad saw me elected twice before he died at age 96. He was proud I was a Regent. He told me to protect the great teachers, to remember Mom and Dad's story and love for the UW and the Wisconsin idea and all that the UW had become. Now, he also told me, and the Regents will understand this, don't take Elvium's name off the Museum of Art. He said that the great teachers must be remembered, and that is what will inspire greatness. Thank you for the honor of serving with all of you. Everything is and everything will be better in Wisconsin because of our education system. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Libby. And now I'd like to call upon Vice President Pruitt to present a resolution of appreciation for Regent Thomas.
Thank you. Good morning, as Regent Davis would say. Good morning.
Good morning.
I like that. It's kind of a refrain. It's a little bit like being in church. Been in church for a while. Let me begin by acknowledging that Regent Thomas's parents have joined us today. Cynthia Thomas and David Thomas. Cynthia and David, all of us as parents, have had to go and at times endure those parent-teacher conferences when the results of the standardized test scores, which Regent Burmaster is well aware of, are revealed about what we are sure are our genuinely brilliant children. And all too often we walk away disappointed. Cynthia and David, this room is filled with folks who have spent far more of their lives than I have in education, and have a far wider and better basis of comparison than I do. But from what I've seen, Colleen is clearly in the 99%. You have raised a most remarkable daughter. Congratulations. I have always thought that serving on the board as a student regent is among the most difficult of balancing acts. We ask Colleen and Kevin and soon Aaron to recognize where they come from and provide that unique perspective to the deliberations, but also to, wherever possible, look beyond the student perspective and recognize the many other varied constituencies and interests that comprise the University of Wisconsin system. I have no doubt that there have been times that Colleen might have considered the words of that great American philosopher Woody Allen, who once said, "In the end, the lion will agree to lay down with the lamb, but the lamb won't get much sleep." During her 2 years on the Board of Regents, I suspect Regent Thomas has not gotten a lot of sleep, in part because of her diligence to understand and represent the unique perspective of students when it comes to the most important issues we deal with. The cost of education, the quality of instruction, ensuring access to those who for too long have been denied it. But also because I think Colleen has demonstrated a really remarkable capacity to go up to sort of 30,000 feet and view the issues from both the short and the long-term perspective. And that is a really extraordinary capacity for anyone to have, and especially for someone who is not as old as David and I. I know we all have our own examples to draw from this, but for me, I will always admire Colleen's sort of selfless dedication to help facilitate a reorganization of the United Council of Students. That was not in your job description, but it was a genuine effort to leave a legacy that will live on well past your time on this board. I will always remember the thoughtful way she balanced the questions of increasing student costs versus maintaining institutional quality. Never once resorting to demagoguery, but always asking the right questions and appreciating at least the possibility of different answers to those questions. Having served with her on the Regents Committee to select the Chancellor at UW-Madison, I can testify that no one came better prepared and demonstrated better instincts. Winston Churchill once said, "To all of us comes that moment in life when we are literally tapped on the shoulder to do a very special thing unique to ourselves and our talents. What a pity if that moment finds us unprepared." From her first day to her last, Regent Thomas came to this board prepared to make a contribution. And those contributions will be with us for a long time in the future. Colleen, it has been a genuine honor to serve on this board with you. We will miss you. Come back. Visit any time. You can have my football tickets whenever you need them. And I would offer one piece of advice to everyone in this room. We need to keep being nice to Colleen in the years ahead, because I would not be at all surprised if we all aren't working for her someday. So with that, I'm pleased to offer this resolution of appreciation, and there's some really good stuff in here. In terms of this resolution of appreciation to Student Regent Colleen P. Thomas. Whereas Colleen Thomas has dedicated 2 years in exemplary service as a student regent of the University of Wisconsin system from 2007 to 2009. And whereas her civic engagement and leadership on behalf of students has been publicly commended, including at a Board of Regents meeting, at which time fellow students cited her commitment and dedication in promoting the student voice in Wisconsin, and particularly noted her work in advocating for the model of shared governance. And that was a pretty remarkable thing. And whereas her participation on the Education Committee has helped continue high-caliber academic programs at UW institutions, and her membership on the Regent Meeting Effectiveness Committee has contributed to the improved quality and efficiency of these board meetings. And whereas Colleen has served as a member of the Teaching Excellence Awards Committee, helping the board select recipients for the highest recognition bestowed on members of UW Systems faculty and instructional academic staff, recognizing them for making student learning and success their primary mission. And whereas her astute student perspective has helped guide the direction of 2 UW institutions through her service on special chancellor search committees for UW-Madison and UW-Whitewater. And whereas she had brought together regents, chancellors, student leaders, and other academic leaders in face-to-face discussions about opportunities for working together toward common educational goals, therefore strengthening communication among these groups and illustrating her active commitment to effective shared governance on all levels. And whereas she has been a strong advocate for inclusive excellence and creating community on UW campuses, supporting President Kevin P. Riley's efforts to ensure that the UW system models inclusive excellence in all its education and employment practices, working to close the achievement gap and enroll a broader cross-section of Wisconsin's diverse population. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin system hereby offer thanks and commendation to Colleen Thomas for her distinguished and dedicated service to the citizens of Wisconsin and the UW system. Mark J. Bradley, President of the Board.
Thank you, Chuck, for those very kind words and for the resolution and the kind words there. To start off, I'd like to share a poem with you. It's an Irish poem. The author is dead, white, and male. It was written by an Irish monk in the 9th century. He was tasked with transcribing the Book of Kells. And like many modern students, this young apprentice seems to have become a little distracted in the course of his work. He penned this poem on the back of a manuscript. It's called Pengerban, and I've omitted a few verses for brevity here. I and Pengerban, my cat, 'tis a like task we are at. Hunting mice is his delight. Hunting words, I sit all night. Better far than praise of men, 'tis to sit with book and pen. Penger bears me no ill will. He too plies his simple skill. Oftentimes a mouse will stray into the hero Penger's way. Oftentimes my keen thought set takes a meaning in its net. Against the wall he sets his eye, full and fierce and sharp and sly. Against the wall of knowledge I all my little wisdom try. Practice every day has made Penger perfect in his trade. I get wisdom day and night, turning darkness into light. This monk describes the pursuit of knowledge that is constantly sought by our students, faculty, administrators, and staff, who spend days and often nights looking for solutions to the problems we face and working towards new ideas that will move Wisconsin forward. The collective talent, experience, and dedication of people in this room is humbling. It's probably for the best that student regents come in relatively unaware of the impressive life stories that surround them in this room. Each meeting I became more and more humbled. But to think about the breadth and depth of knowledge, inquiry, and commitment held by thousands of people who work in this system is also astonishing. Whether they run high-tech labs, train freshmen how to write, advise students on course selection, or remove potentially hazardous waste from those high-tech labs, these folks are making great things happen every day. It has been an absolute privilege of mine to meet some of these people as I've held this seat and traveled around to our campuses. And in April, I made it to my 13th of the 4 years, and I made it to a few of the 2 years. I hope that the board might take a moment now to recognize the sacrifices that each of these people will make in the coming biennium, because it can feel, I think, that this 18th floor is a world away from their daily work. The past 2 years have been marked by some very sad events on our campuses. Student deaths, trips to detox, sexual assaults, incidents of hazing, and house fires. Many of the dangerous situations our students face are related to alcohol and drug use and also abuse often. There are other serious impediments to success on our campuses. Racism, classism, gender bias. These varied obstacles are costly to personal growth, to the flow of ideas so essential to a productive learning environment, and to lost potential. All costs are borne despite investments already made by the state, by families, by students. We have programs on our campuses and at the system level that are addressing these pressing issues, such as the Wisconsin Idea Forum on Alcohol and our Inclusive Excellence Initiative. But especially after having spent many months wading through the controversies around 17 and 18, I am convinced that the real change for the better will only come about through a cultural shift in behavior and peer expectations that is borne by students themselves. And it is a perpetual battle because so many of our students come of age while on our campuses. Some come of age more gracefully than others. And I do know, though, that there are students on all of our campuses who long for this shift in culture. I am one of them, and I've talked with a lot. These students could be empowered to create change if they were offered resources, mentorship, and support for their efforts to improve campus life. But the change must be in their own hands, or it won't last. Finally, most dear to my heart is a conviction that we must make this educational endeavor harder and more challenging, to further and continuously provoke new thought. Ingenuity is our lifeblood. Its veins the challenges facing Wisconsin communities. Despite the budget problems, in the face of enough problems to keep all of us up at night, we must strive to be greater, to know more, to further ease the pain in our communities, and to better cultivate citizens for both their personal lives and the contributions they make to communities. And in all we do, we must strive only to a standard that has not yet been satisfied, that we will have room to live better lives within the scope of very large dreams. What success I've had here and what service I have been able to fulfill in these 2 very short years is a product of the diligence and commitment of a large number of people. These folks are the board staff, the system leadership, and the system staff. I'd especially like to thank Kevin, Larry Rubin, the now departed Melissa Kepner, and Cindy Graham for their relentless support of my ideas and also for their fantastic work with our student leaders. Thank you to Dave Drew and the communications team for their advice and interest in my efforts. And thank you to our chancellors for their commitment to strong student leadership. To my fellow board members, I can't start talking about any of you or it'll start sounding like the Golden Globes. But also suffice to say that I cannot adequately describe how privileged I have felt to be embraced as your colleague so fully. Thank you very much. Finally, one last point. I would like to recognize my parents, who have guided me throughout my life and who I credit with helping me to understand the value of public service. Thank you very much.
Madam Secretary, if you could make sure the record shows that both resolutions were approved by acclamation.
Could we request that we have copies of both of those speeches?
Yesterday and today, you could request anything you want.
I
The answer is yes. Good. Judy, if you could work with Libby and Colleen.
You don't want my speech?
You know, when Regent Thomas was a brand new regent, she was asked to give a speech as a regent, and she said, "Do you have any suggestions of what I might say?" I said, "You've got to be kidding." Regent Thomas is okay by herself. You have in your materials additional resolutions of appreciation to Chancellor Linda Bunnell, Interim Chancellor Connie Foster, and Interim Chancellor David Ward. Those resolutions, Madam Secretary, will be approved by acclamation and forwarded to the recipients in appreciation for their leadership and service. Thanks. The report of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board is in your folders. The regents on that board are Regents Keene, Burmaster, Smith, and Vasquez. Additional, those are the only materials. So I now would like to turn it over to System President Kevin Riley.
Thank you, President Bradley. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you. These are busy, challenging times, as we all know, and in addition to the sometimes seemingly all-consuming budget matters that we deal with, I wanted to talk about a couple of other issues we're working on this morning. We continue to focus on building stronger relationships, coalitions with the many groups who support and are affected by the UW system. That includes the business lobby, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, or WMC. As you may have seen, the WMC has embarked on a new plan of its own called Moving Wisconsin Forward. That plan highlights their ideas for economic renewal and lays out their agenda. For the first time, that agenda spells out the group's specific support for the UW system. WMC is supporting increased flexibilities in management and in our capital planning, enhancement of financial aid for our students, and recognition that adequate state funding must be provided if the university is to succeed. This statement of support is due, I want to add quickly, in no small part to the advocacy by our chancellors to the WMC colleagues and their regions around the state, folks who serve on the board and our members. So we're very pleased to work with WMC statewide on this, and we look forward to continuing to strengthen that important relationship. We think it's often a voice that's heard more fully by folks down at the other end of State Street if there are some third-party advocates for the university, not just those of us who work in it and those of you who sit on the board. Similarly, the Wisconsin Higher Ed Business Roundtables recently spoken out in support of the UW system's budget. Weber's membership includes some prominent business leaders who've taken the step of calling for more support of the university. Right now, despite the tough economic times that we're in, the roundtable recognizes in their statement the importance of funding the university and the need for more financial aid for our students as well. The group also supports our request for increased flexibilities in the state building process with an eye toward making more efficient use of resources. So those are two, I think, very good pieces of news for us, and in a way, I think, groundbreaking efforts, initiatives by those two business organizations on behalf of the university. I think it says, again, the message is getting through about the importance of the UW to the future of the state. This morning we have other reasons for optimism, and they would be this year's recipients of the 2009 Regents Academic Staff Excellence Awards. So to lead us in that celebration, I'll turn the floor over to Regent Eileen Conley-Kiesler, who chaired the selection committee for these awards. Eileen.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome today the two individuals and the program winners for our 2009 Academic Staff Regents Awards for Excellence. On the screen is a list of all the award winners since its inception in 1998 that you can't see. It's coming. Why is it whenever I do these, there's little glitches? Do you? It's going better than last year, I think. What did you want me to stop? Okay, with this award, the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin Systems recognizes the dedicated work, the vital services, and outstanding contributions of the UW System's academic staff. These winners embody the hard work, dedication, and out-of-the-box thinking of our talented UW System academic staff. The board is pleased to honor one group that helps to strengthen and invigorate not only our UW system, but the communities in which they serve. With each award, each recipient will receive a $5,000 stipend designated to support their professional development and other activities that will enhance the university program or function. But before we introduce our first recipient, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the award program. Each UW system institution is invited to submit one nomination for the 2009 Academic Staff Regents Award for Excellence. A selection committee that I chaired for the recipients, along with other regents, Regent Drew, Ocknorth, Smith, Vasquez, and Womack. Now, when I tell you a little bit about the criteria that we use, because there are 4 areas that we look at when picking these awards. The first, excellence of performance. Performance that consistently and substantially exceeds in quality the expectations for the position, has set superior standards for excellence, and has resulted in important and significant contributions to his or her department and institution. Personal interaction. Performance that consistently and substantially demonstrates ability and willingness to work positively and effectively with others. Initiative and creativity. Performance that consistently and substantially demonstrates an innovative approach to the job. And outstanding achievement. Performance that consistently and substantially has resulted in important and significant contributions to the departmental unit and the university, and has resulted in distinction of one's profession, campus-wide, system-wide, statewide, nationally, or internationally. I know that I speak for the Regents on the committee in saying we were impressed by the quality and achievements of all the nominees. And it was hard to choose just 3 winners, and we believe that all the nominees represent the enormous accomplishments and commitments of our academic staff across the UW system. And all the nominees should take pride in having been nominated for this award. This nomination acknowledges the value their institution places on their many contributions to the University of Wisconsin system. And with this background, Regent Brent Smith will present our first individual award winner of our 2009 Academic Regent Award.
Thank you, Eileen. Well, I'm tempted to talk about Madison West and its many football victories. Maybe I'll go to the other topics of the day. It's a pleasure for me to present the first of 2 individual academic staff Regent Awards for excellence to Amy Lloyd. Amy has worked for the university in several different capacities. In her current position as leadership training coordinator, Amy worked with Jennifer Elsesser, I think that, and McKenna Pfeiffer in creating and developing the IROC program, which recently won the UW River Falls Chancellor's Award for Program Excellence. This program was selected as a finalist for the Regents Program Award for Excellence. Amy is extremely student-focused, energetic, creative, engaging, explorative, and despite all this, quite humble. In each of these various job positions, Amy has consistently gone above and beyond her job responsibilities to carry out the university's mission, and that is to help students learn in order that they may be successful as productive, creative, ethical, engaged citizens and leaders with an informed global connection. In many ways, Amy's accomplishments fit into each of our 4 criteria that Eileen talked about. For example, as one of the creators and developers of the IROC program, I like that name, Amy illustrated her skills in working with students to identify their needs and then creating a program to meet those needs and to learn those life skills in an experimental manner that often includes laughter and fun. Leadership competencies and having a sense of social responsibilities are other areas of program development where Amy has excelled. For example, her social justice series is designed to heighten students' awareness and teach them skills to address inequality and injustice on campus, in their communities, and within society. Leading and managing students and staff require competence across several multidisciplinary areas. As leadership development coordinator, Amy has mastered both the practice and the art of humanistic leadership and management. She's the embodiment of a true leader, providing support, creativity, and enthusiasm to those around her. Amy collaborates regularly with many different departments on and off the UW River Falls campus. For example, she worked with the Falcon Fellows, the Upward Bound program, and Sharing and Caring Hands team program to put on an outstanding Martin Luther King Day program. Amy regularly partners with Multicultural Services to organize and lead an overnight retreat at Camp St. Croix, as well as developed and coordinated the Social Justice Series for students, faculty, and staff, creating awareness and education and addressing inequality and adversity on campus and in the community. In her personal statement, Amy expressed the following: I don't believe the work I do is extraordinary, but I do my job to the best of my ability because I believe in contributing to the personal development of students. I'm committed to the mission of UW River Falls to help students learn so that they are successful as productive, creative, ethical, engaged citizens and leaders with an informed global perspective. And I carry the spirit of this mission each day in the work that I do. And that is very clear from what we've described here and what we learned. And so it's with great pleasure that I introduce our first winner of the 2009 Individual Academic Staff Award for Excellence, Amy Lloyd.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents for recognizing the contributions of academic staff throughout the University of Wisconsin System. I am truly honored to be one of the people being recognized this year. As I mentioned in my personal statement, and as Brent mentioned, I do not believe the work that I do is extraordinary. Instead, I feel that I have found a career that fits my strengths and my passion, which makes the work I do hardly work at all. I'm able to sustain such a high level of involvement as a leadership and service coordinator because it's what truly energizes me. The two factors that I identify as being critical to my development as an academic staff person are the students that I work with and the environment that I work within. As I was reading an issue of About Campus this past week, I was introduced to a metaphor by Robert Nash, a professor at the University of Vermont, that I feel aptly illustrates my experiences at UWRF. Nash describes the makeup of a campus as a group of skilled musicians. He states, as equal members of an educational jazz ensemble, we each retain our signature melodic variations, improvisations, and dissonances, yet we also agree on a central theme. Our individual riffs are to be judged mainly on how effectively they mesh and create compassion, energy, and creativity in order to respond to each student's quest for meaning and purpose. The University of Wisconsin-River Falls is a place that is made up of individuals who have agreed to support the one central theme that you've heard a couple times now, helping students learn so that they are successful as productive, creative, ethical, engaged citizens and leaders with an informed global perspective. And everyone carries the spirit of this mission each day in the work that they do. This collaboration has been instrumental in allowing me to be creative in developing programs at the institution. Several of my initiatives would not have been nearly as successful, if at all possible, if other departments at UWRF were not open to playing along, as well as contributing their own individual riffs. The fact that the UWRF faculty staff are highly dedicated and energetic in supporting the mission of the institution has been critical in allowing my creativity to flourish, and in return has allowed and encouraged my growth as an outstanding academic staff person. For example, this year, we decided to gather a group of students, faculty, and staff to develop a social justice series to educate and create awareness around social justice issues so that participants might become stronger agents for social change. Of the 14 lectures, simulations, and trainings offered this year, the signature event included more than 15 faculty staff volunteers facilitating 70 students who participated in a half-day interactive experience on power, privilege, and oppression, reading White Like Me by Tim Weiss, participating in small book groups, and then having a dinner and question and answer session with Tim Weiss prior to his keynote address. This event alone took the help of several campus partners, collaborating on funding, logistics, book groups, developing pre-post test assessments, reflection, and the marketing, which asked students to participate in all of this without any course credit. At the end of every social justice series event, some participants become an ally for the issue which they just learned about, and by the end of the academic year, a group of more than 600 people at our campus had officially become allies wearing t-shirts that stated that, helping me realize the impact this series was having at UWRF. I pursued this career because I believe in contributing to the personal development of students, but it is the students at UWRF that have taught me so much. They come to UWRF looking to be challenged. They want to have the opportunity to see their visions carried out, and ultimately they want to leave UWRF a better place than when they arrived. Since starting in my current position 2 years ago, A committee of students has helped to develop a mission, vision, and strategic plan for leadership and service on our campus. They have greatly assisted in the development and implementation of an international service trip program to Uganda. So far, they have raised over $13,300 toward a building a school that will benefit vulnerable children in sub-Saharan Africa. They've developed a national service trip program that takes place over spring break, an annual leadership training program for clubs and org leaders. They introduced Strengths Quest to our campus and have facilitated more than 500 students and staff in one academic year. They produced the Social Justice Series, as you've heard about, and they created a semester-long first-year leadership program, which 17 students completed, again, without any course credit involved. None of this would have been possible in 1 year without the efforts of several dynamic undergraduate students. I am able to be an outstanding academic staff person because of the incredible human capital that surrounds me. While award opportunities like this certainly do mean a lot to the individuals who are nominated for them, the real gratification is in the intrinsic reward that I receive from seeing my students get the big picture and put it into action. As Reverend King put it, what you reap is what you sow. And I am fortunate to have a career that allows me the opportunity every day to see the fruits of my hard work and the growth of my students. Working with others who teach and inspire, and in an environment that fosters creativity and intellectual development, seems to make it easy to bring about great things. I am grateful for this opportunity to share with you my experiences at UWRF, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to the students, faculty, staff, and administrators who have worked closely with me throughout the past 5 years. And I'd also like to extend a special thank you to my husband, Brian, for his support and encouragement through all of this. It's really been great. But thank you all very much for this honor.
I'm very pleased to present the second individual Academic Staff Regents Award for Excellence to Leslie Redmond. And it's all the more remarkable, as I found out last night, that Leslie has struggled with the same handicap that I have all her life. We were both born and spent our formative years in Illinois. Leslie has served with distinction as a non-instructional academic staff member at UW-Madison for the past 17 years, providing exceptional services to the university and to the statewide community. In ways small and large, she embodies the finest of our academic staff professionals, and I believe she is unusually deserving of this award. Leslie Redmond joined the staff of the University of Wisconsin Center for Tobacco Research and Intervention in 2001. Prior to that time, she had expertly led several large and complex projects for the UW School of Medicine and Public Health, including launching and directing the landmark Women's Health Initiative Madison site. There, she held multiple positions simultaneously: recruitment director, clinic manager, and data manager, and served as budget and administrative manager. The Madison Women's Health Initiative was highly successful in meeting and often surpassing national recruitment, retention, and quality goals. The core outcomes for the Wisconsin side of that study, what interventions help and harm women, were realized in no small part by Leslie's fine work. More recently, she has been recognized nationally for her expertise in tobacco and innovative state programming. When the state of Wisconsin turned to the UW Center for Tobacco Research and Intervention to establish a state-of-the-art telephonic tobacco cessation service, it was Leslie who led this enormous endeavor. She established criteria for an optimal service and contracted to ensure the delivery of this service. The resulting Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line, and for all you who are still smoking, that's 1-800-QUIT-NOW, has been successful beyond the most optimistic hopes. Since 2001, more than 122,000 Wisconsin residents have called for help in quitting. During that same time, the adult smoking rate has fallen from 24% in 2000 to 19.6% 6.6% in 2008. Leslie established as a founding principle that the Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line would provide barrier-free treatment services to state residents, providing a powerful incentive for smokers across our state to make a quit attempt. The population-wide impact cannot be overemphasized. Fully half of the 1 million smokers in Wisconsin today will prematurely die of a disease directly caused by their addiction to tobacco. As you know, Governor Doyle just signed a bill for a tobacco-free Wisconsin, which will undoubtedly make the cessation program that Amy leads even more necessary and important for Wisconsin residents. I can just see those 1-800-QUIT-NOW stickers outside the entrances to buildings. By establishing and managing a quit line that has arguably been the most effective in the nation, Ms. Redmond has demonstrated the best of the Wisconsin idea. Take the knowledge generated on the campus and translate it into actions that positively impact the lives of residents across the state. In sum, it is a pleasure for me to introduce Leslie Redmond as the winner of our second individual Academic Staff Excellence Award.
Thank you for that nice introduction. And thank you to the Regents assembled here for your stewardship of this world-class institution. It is so humbling to stand here before all of you, and I am honored and very grateful. My husband and I are both graduates of the UW, and now we have a daughter who is going into her third year at the UW Eau Claire. So we're fans of the system, and it just gives this award more meaning for me and my family, so thank you. I actually took a French class right here in this building, and I'm aging myself, but it was in 1972. If I could tap, or someone could tap that young lady that was me on the shoulder and tell her that someday she'd be standing before all of you accepting this award, she never would have believed you. To have this, the satisfaction of providing leadership to UW-Madison projects like the Women's Health Initiative and the Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line have been remarkable privileges for me. The good news, too, that we haven't mentioned, that you may have heard, is that Wisconsin will be a smoke-free state in a year. And that's due to not just my efforts, just mine in a small way, but many, many, many people across the state. And we listened to our residents who said that's what we want, and the governor has listened too. So we're excited about that. The bad news about that we've recently learned that's in the budget that's going back and forth now is that the tobacco control program that funds the Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line and all the other services that I oversee, including outreach and training for healthcare providers and clinicians across the state, as well as CMEs and system change efforts. That program has been cut by 40% in the year to come, just starting July 1st. So we're doing everything we can to maintain the services to smokers. You may know the tax went up last year for tobacco user on tobacco products. It will probably be going up again. It is mostly low-income people and that are now smoking in our state, and it will really impact them. It will create opportunities. All of this policy will create opportunities and more initiative for people to quit, and smokers do want to quit, I assure you. But without those services there to help them break the grip from this deadly addiction, it's going to be hard. So we'll keep at it and wish us luck in the next few months to do what we can to restore that. So that was really just an aside. I was asked to speak to the question, what has contributed to my success as an academic staff person? And I'd have to say there are really three things, and they parallel what Amy said quite closely. Number one would have to be UW people. The people that I've met, been surrounded with, other academic staff, students, faculty. I have been so privileged to work with many, many inspiring and supportive individuals over the years. Specifically, I'm grateful to Dr. Michael Fiore, who is my boss and director of the UW Center for Tobacco Research and Intervention. He graciously nominated me for this award, and he has provided leadership to me, and we really have been partners on this statewide program since 2001. I also need to, it's weird when you get, in some ways, when you get an award like this, because I think of all the other, it really isn't me, it's this team of people that are accomplishing these things. I would need to recognize my staff, including Kate Kobinski, who manages the Wisconsin Tobacco Quit Line, Rob Atsid, who manages the UW C-Tree Outreach Program, and that's the one that works with healthcare providers and health systems to help them intervene routinely with people who smoke. I also have to, the core of the program are the 6 outreach staff who are housed in Oshkosh, Milwaukee, Eau Claire, and Rhinelander. Each day they're out there working in these communities, working with clinicians, clinics, hospitals, and health systems, and they are transforming the way tobacco is treated in Wisconsin. There are so many other academic staff, too, colleagues like Moira Harrington, who's here today, our communications director at the center, and of course many dedicated and brilliant scientists who have helped me out in so many ways and taught me so much. In particular, I feel like partners with them in taking the research into practice and kind of grappling with all the challenges and rewards that brings. Special thank you to some UW people who have mentored me over the years, Dr. Carol Riff, Dr. Linda Baker, Dr. Pat McBride, Pat Cocatilo, and Dr. Dean Cron, just to name a few. The second contributor for me has to be the resources and atmosphere of the university. An institution that values innovation, lifelong learning, service, and collaborative work. And all of this adds up to changing the world for the better. Through the UW, I've been able to provide vital services to Wisconsin residents. I've been able to contribute to scientific knowledge that has really had an immediate effect and impact on practice and on people's lives. And most of all, I just feel so fortunate to be able to have work that I love and that contributes to reducing, healthcare costs, but mostly human suffering. The final contributor, I have to say, are our partners, public and private, all across the state and nationally. We work with, like I said, all the health systems. It's just been so interesting and a learning process to figure out how to bridge public health and academic medicine and primary care and hospitals and all of that. And it's been an exciting adventure for us. The advancement and dissemination of knowledge and best practices are certainly a part of the mission of the university, and the programs that I've been able to lead really do embody this and the Wisconsin idea. Not only have I been able to feel like we've disseminated the best practice and implemented it into medical care, but I've also had the good fortune of learning from the communities and been in an environment where we definitely do research into practice, but we also pull practice back into research. So that's been really fun. Through these partnerships, together we've discovered creativity, innovation, unexpected resources, and strengths, and I've really seen the power of collaboration to create big change. It's really been a dream come true for me to be able to do this work, and I'm grateful for the many opportunities that the university and the UW School of Medicine and Public Health have offered me over the past 18 years. It's been my pleasure to serve the state of Wisconsin in the role of academic staff, and I thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I have the privilege to present the Academic Staff Regents Award for Program Excellence. As you can imagine, there were so many program nominations, and it was a difficult selection for our committee. But a decision had to be made, and we stepped up to the challenge, and we did make the decision. And our selection was the Educational Talent Search for, or ETS program at UW-Fox Valley, because it addresses two of the primary concerns and priorities of our Board of Regents: increasing the number of baccalaureate degree holders in the state and increasing the diversity of the UW system student body and graduates. It will be only when we have truly diverse, successful graduates from our university system that we will be able to call ourselves institutions of excellence. The ETS program accomplishes these two goals by providing a bridge between K-12 school districts and UW system institutions for first-generation, low-income, and historically underrepresented students in the UW system. The ETS staff provides programming and support to middle and high school students to encourage them to pursue college degrees. This is the only TRIO program that serves students as early as 6th grade, a critical time at which future plans and expectations begin to develop in these students. This means that even though students can enter the program at any point after 6th grade, students that start the program in 6th grade have an opportunity to stay involved for 7 years. 7 years of consistent, regular exposure to the academic, career, and financial advice and support they will need to succeed. Since its inception in 2006, the ETS program has had impressive success. In the most recent years, 100% of non-senior participants were retained and promoted to the next grade. And all of the 72 seniors in the program applied for college. Overall, since the program started, 92 ETS students have enrolled in UW system institutions and 50 more enrolled at other universities. That's impressive. It is because of the significant impact that this program has had on young people's lives, and it is now my pleasure for me to present this award to Terry Holzman, Director of the Educational Talent Search Program at UW-Fox Valley. And for me, it's also an added personal satisfaction because it is a former colleague during my extension days. And so, Terry, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank President and Mrs. Riley for hosting us last night for dinner at their beautiful home. Driving back to the hotel last night, my husband and I decided we might move to Madison now that we've seen the quality of public housing here. I'd like to thank the Board of Regents and the Selection Committee for choosing the Educational Talent Search Program to receive this award. It is an honor for me to accept it on behalf of UW-Fox Valley, its partners in the program, the Menasha and Kaukauna school districts, and most importantly, on behalf of those students who aspire to higher education. The program coordinators, Dawn Grenzer, who I brought along with me today to share in this, and Carrie Johnson, put their heart and soul into the success of this program each and every day, logging in over 35 hours of workshop time with students each month and over 5,000 hours of personal student contact every year. It is exactly this kind of focused attention to our most important stakeholders the students, and their families that has led over 170 Wisconsin high school graduates from Kaukauna and Menasha to apply for college. More than half of those have gone on to call a UW campus home. As a Conrad educator with UW Extension for many years, I embraced the Wisconsin idea of bringing the resources of the university to the people of Wisconsin wherever they live and work. As I came on board as the director of the Talent Search program, I quickly realized the impact this program has had and will continue to have on the lives of the 620 young people who choose to participate in it. There could be no better sponsor for this program than the UW system, with its ability to take a vision and grow it into a relevant, vital community asset. This program's success comes directly from the UW system's commitment to collaboration between the higher education and K-12 communities as a path to increase the number of students who enter our state's universities. By proactively responding and reaching out to the Menasha and Kaukauna school districts, by allowing our program coordinators to engage in their work right in the schools, and by opening the doors to Wisconsin campuses, the university system has made it possible for more than 700 students to see themselves going to college. For many of these students and their parents, what once may have seemed like a distant and at times unattainable dream has come into focus so clearly that now we hear them say, "I am going to college." And now Dawn, our high school coordinator, would like to share a few thoughts about the students we serve.
Hello, everybody. I would like to thank President Riley, the Board of Regents, and the Selection Committee for this incredible award. Working for the TRIO Educational Talent Search Program and being able to instill hope, determination, the possibility, and the opportunity of pursuing college within our students has been extremely rewarding. Over the past 3 years, I have assisted over 100 seniors, in enrolling in post-secondary education. To make this possible, one of the key components to the success of our program is the buy-in and support we have from our 2 school districts we serve, Kaukauna and Menasha. Both districts have considered the TRIO ETS coordinators as their own staff, which has provided us with easy access to the students we serve, collaboration with other school staff, and visibility of our program and the UW-Fox Valley to the middle and high school students we serve. Each school has set up a TRIO office, which has allowed students to see the staff as part of their regular school day and feel comfortable to drop by. As a high school coordinator, since the beginning of our program, I have had the opportunity to open the door to post-secondary education for students that had never dreamt they were capable or financially able to pursue. Many students that come from low-income homes and or with parents that do not have a post-secondary education that I've worked with have multiple misconceptions of college. As these students go through our program, they are grateful to be able to benefit from the informational sessions, workshops, hands-on activities, college tours, one-on-one meetings, and assistance in applying for financial aid. They now have the choice to make a difference in their own lives and pursue something they never thought was possible, college. I would like to share with you a personal reward that I received as a TRIO Educational Talent Search High School Coordinator at Menasha High School last night. At Menasha High School graduation, I was presented a Bell Award. This award is given to a school staff that has made a major impact in a student's life while at Menasha High. A selection committee reviews and then chooses the top 10 students' requests, and they are able to present the award at graduation. The student who nominated me has been an active participant in our TRIO program for the past 3 years, and without the program, I believe she would not now be heading to college to confidently pursue a bachelor's degree in radiologic technology. This is just one example of the incredible impact the TRIO Educational Talent Search Program has had on over 620 students that we serve each year. Along with the rest of the TRIO ETS staff and the students we serve, I am extremely grateful for this Regents Award and the monetary gift. This money will provide us the opportunity to enhance our program and better serve our students. Thank you.
to a continuation of President Riley's report.
Congratulations again to all our award winners, and in addition to how nice this is for them, and we admire them all, it's a good reminder for all of us about how important the work we're involved in is as a university system. So congratulations to our colleagues who won those awards. Let me mention a few items of additional interest, I think, from around the system. I'm pleased to report that UW Stout had a very successful accreditation review by the Higher Learning Commission, the commission which is part of the North Central Association of Colleges and Schools, hailed UW Stout for its commitment to continuous quality improvement and other principles associated with the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, which you'll recall Stout received 8 years ago. In their report, the reviewers said, quote, UW Stout is a role model nationally and internationally on quality improvement in higher education, end quote. UW Stout joined North Central's Academic Quality Improvement Program, or AQIP, in 2001. So our congratulations to Chancellor Chuck Sorensen, as well as Provost Julie Firstbilly, who's here today representing Stout, who led the campus's AQIP effort. UW-Milwaukee, the Children's Research Institute, and the Medical College of Wisconsin have been awarded an $8.5 million federal grant to combine their individual areas of expertise to form a national research powerhouse in the area of children's environmental health. The Children's Environmental Health Science Core Center is the only such center in the country devoted solely to this field, and is also unique in its broad team-based approach. The 5-year funding is provided by the National Institute for Environmental Health Services, so congratulations to Chancellor Santiago and his colleges and his university on that. From UW-Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Student Association recently presented its first Shared Governance Award to Chancellor Rick Wells in recognition of his continued commitment to students and the shared governance process. The association also presented Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Petra Rhoda, who spoke yesterday, with its Doug McLean Memorial Award for Student Advocacy and Outstanding Dedication, Commitment, and Service to Students. So congratulations to Chancellor Wells and Vice Chancellor Rhoda. We also have good news from UW-Whitewater. The struggling economy may have put a damper on some of our growth agenda momentum, but a new outreach program at UW-Whitewater is showing how we can continue to move towards one of the growth agenda priorities, growing more college graduates. Through a $90,000 grant from the UW System Committee on Baccalaureate Expansion, a new UW-Whitewater program is targeting adults who left the university with one semester of coursework to complete. The university reports that about 330 students from 2001 to the present have been identified so far, and I know that Dick and his colleagues hope to attract many of them back to complete their degrees. There's a similar baccalaureate completion program going on at UW-Oshkosh as well. Also from Whitewater, another Warhawks team has claimed a national championship. The UW-Whitewater paintball team brought home its first ever National Collegiate Paintball Association Championship, defeating Texas A&M 2-1. Representing the Midwest North region, the Warhawks outlasted 55 other teams at the championships, which were held recently in Lakeland, Florida. You may recall last month that we told you about UW-Whitewater's men's wheelchair basketball team winning a national title. So congratulations again to the Warhawks athletics program, and keep those wheelchairs rolling and those paint guns popping, Chancellor Telford. Christine Andrews, our Assistant Vice President for Federal Relations, has been appointed to a 1-year term as a counselor in the at-large division with the Council on Undergraduate Research, or CUR. CUR believes that faculty members enhance their teaching and contribution to society by involving undergraduates in research, something UW certainly does endorse. I'm sure Chris will be a strong contributor to the mission. And UW System has other representation at the Council on Undergraduate Research as well. Dr. Bill Campbell, Director of Grants and Research at UW River Falls, is the treasurer of the organization. Linda Freed, UW-Oshkosh's Director of Sponsored Programs, is chair of the at-large division. And Viender Agarwal, UW-La Crosse's Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, is chair of the Physics and Astronomy division. In a cautionary line from the English poet John Donne, which was appropriated by Ernest Hemingway as a title for one of his novels, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." UW Green Bay is celebrating the installation of its brand new carillon outside the north entrance to the University Union. The 35-foot tower has more than 400 preloaded melodies, and it will also feature selections written by music professor Cheryl Grosso. The carillon is a gift from the family of UW Green Bay's founding chancellor, Ed Widener, and other friends of the university. The formal dedication of the carillon will be tomorrow, June 6th, and I think the timing is coincidental, but it's also a pretty nice welcome, I'm sure, for UW Green Bay's new chancellor, Tom Harden. So, Tom, may your bells peal forever brightly in your new job. I'd like to call your attention to a striking publication that comes out of UW Oshkosh called War Through Their Eyes. It's a student journalism project led by Grace Lim, an adjunct journalism professor, and Rick Wells mentioned this in his comments yesterday. 15 students in her spring Writing for the Media class were involved in this ambitious project to tell the often untold silent stories of our student veterans. The resulting 80-page book includes very compelling and very personal stories and photographs about 13 soldiers and 3 Marines at UW Oshkosh. The project has also attracted some national attention. ABC News recently featured War Through Their Eyes on its website. As Grace Lim, the instructor, put it, the project, quote, gives these student soldiers and Marines a forum to tell the world why they enlisted, what they did, and what they felt at the front lines of war, unquote. So we've included a copy of the book in your packets, and I think as you look at it, it will make you proud once again of our student veterans and of our student journalists. On Wednesday, Resonant Microsystems, Inc. announced that it will locate operations in Eau Claire to produce nanoscale products under a contract with the Department of Defense. UW Eau Claire, UW Stout, Chippewa Valley Technical College, and others have been working for several years to make this happen. One of our growth agenda goals is to attract new businesses and create new jobs, and we're doing just that. Resonant Microsystems came to Eau Claire because of the unique blend of research, education, and manufacturing expertise in the Chippewa Valley. UW Eau Claire is involved through its sophisticated scientific instrumentation available in its Materials Science Center. UW Stout is applying its manufacturing process expertise, and CVTC is the home of nano-manufacturing. Resonant Microsystems says it hopes to hire local college graduates as well as laid-off workers from the area. Best of all, the company says that the jobs cannot be outsourced because of defense contract rules, so they should be here to stay. So we congratulate Brian and Chuck and Julie for the work they've done in bringing Resonant Microsystems here. Finally, with apologies to Neil Armstrong, I offer an item that might be entitled, One Small Tweet for Man, One Giant Tweet for Mankind. In early April, Adam Wilson, a UW-Madison doctoral student, did something that's become very common these days. He posted a status update on Twitter. Just 23 characters long, his message to all his followers was simply, using EEG to send tweet. Without fanfare or even punctuation, Adam's little message made big news. As reported by media across the country, he had developed a practical brain-computer interface that would allow people to employ social networking technology using only their brain. Adam is among a growing number of researchers worldwide who aim to perfect a communication system for people whose bodies may be incapacitated, but whose brains function normally. This could include people who have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, for example, or a brainstem stroke, or those who have suffered a spinal cord injury. The story of Adam's breakthrough became something of a phenomenon in the brave new world of social media. The story was told and retold, or tweeted and retweeted, by hundreds of Twitter users. Thousands watched the YouTube video of Adam's demonstration. When Adam set up a special Twitter profile for the UW Brain Computer Interface Lab, he quickly acquired more than 180,000 followers. You'll be pleased to know that our UW researchers aren't the only ones making good use of new social networking technologies. UW System has its own Facebook page and Twitter feed, each with a modest but growing fan base. We've got a long way to go before we catch up with campuses like UW Stout with its 2,300 Facebook fans. Know How to Go Wisconsin is on Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, and Ning. Now, gazing at the gallery to my right of our esteemed chancellors and provosts, you may not guess that some of them are avid social networkers. Chancellor Martin, for instance, has her own Facebook page and more than 300 loyal fans.
Really more than that.
It's a growing number, exponentially. Chancellor Telfer posts regular updates to his vlog, V-L-O-G, or video blog, which is then tweeted to UW-Whitewater's 300 followers. We see examples of how this technology can be used in a very personal, interactive way. For example, one young tweeter recently announced proudly, "I'm going to UW Parkside in the fall." UW Parkside replied on Twitter, "Congratulations, we look forward to seeing you." One UW Stevens Point student this week tweeted, "I'm transferring to UW Madison. Am I the only Point student going?" A tweet from UW System provided the answer. "You're one of 9, not including the 2 UW Madison students transferring to Point." UW Green Bay may win the prize for the most tweets per capita, with more than a dozen individual Twitter feeds for admissions, Capitol News, residence life, tutoring, and other campus offices. Several campuses have their own YouTube channels. They're using iTunes University to post podcasts of classroom lectures. They're using blogs to engage alumni and other stakeholders. These are all exciting new ways to better serve our students, share our successes more widely, and build strong public support. Personally, though, I was just getting used to using Google as a verb. But you'll remember in the presidential campaign that Senator McCain was criticized for talking about the Google. So all this friending and tweeting and YouTubing and podcasting can be a bit confusing. I have some feeling, in addition to being like Senator McCain in that regard, something like our TV news friend Bill Moyers, who recently opined about his reluctance to embrace Twitter and other social media, pondering what some of history's greatest figures might communicate if Twitter had been at their thumbs. Moyer offered these possibilities. Imagine a tweet from George Washington that read, "Crossing Delaware, way cold." Hope Brits don't hear chattering wooden teeth. Or Alexander Hamilton tweeting, "Oh my God, Aaron Burr can't shoot his way out of a paper bag." LOL, laugh out loud. FDR, whose moniker seems ready-made for Twitter, might have offered this tweet during the inauguration. "Must inspire a country. How's this, people? The only thing we have to fear is stuff that hasn't happened yet." Well, rest assured, I'm not tweeting during this Regent meeting. And in fact, I'm happy when I can remember how to turn off my iPhone, prevent it from ringing before the meeting starts. But I thought you might be as intrigued as I am about where our innovative thinkers and technologies are taking us. So despite all that newfangled networking, summer is still summer. So I'll conclude my remarks with a summer poem celebrating the season. This is a poem called "Summer X-Rays" by Nina Cashin. Fabulous days with endless swims, with algae around my waist and convex tears on my cheeks. Far away on the shore, children shouting, dogs with golden rings circling their muzzles, and rumors of abandoned memories. I know what's awaiting me, the winter of my discontent. I have a reservation outside on a hard bench holding a bag of frostbitten potatoes. That's why I swim so far out, willing prisoner inside the sea's immense green magnifying glass. Despite all my inner crumblings, I'm still able to recognize a perfect day. Sea without shadow, sky without wrinkles, air hovering over me like a blessing. How did this day escape the aggressor's edicts? I'm not entitled to it. My well-being is not permitted. Drunk as with some hint of freedom, we bump into each other and laugh raucously on an acutely superstitious scale, knowing that it's forbidden. Could it be just a trap, this perfection, this impeccable air, this water unpolluted by fear? Let's savor it as long as we can. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Good. So that concludes my report for today, and I'll turn things back over to my favorite summer tweet peep, Regent President Bradley.
Thank you, President Riley. I think. I'll now call upon Regent Davis, Chair of the Education Committee, to present that committee's report.
Bradley, and before I do that, I'd like, maybe a couple of you may have noticed that I handed bags to both Libby and Colleen, and I want to publicly thank, on behalf of all of us, I'm sure, Regent Betty Womack, who thank you, way, and very thoughtfully bought gifts for both of our regents, and so that's what I gave them, was the gifts that Betty took the time to buy and the cards that we all took the time to sign. So I just wanted to publicly thank Betty on your behalf. So anyway, something like that. Mr. President, I'm pleased to report the summary from yesterday's meeting of the Education Committee. I'd like to briefly report on some of the highlights of the meeting, describe the action we took on chapters 17 and 18, and then present the consent agenda for Regent action. Item 1 was the UW-Milwaukee Charter School contract extension for the Tenor High School. The committee enjoyed a robust discussion of Tenor High School, a UWM-authorized charter school, seeking from the board a 5-year contract renewal. The school is operated by Seeds of Health, a nonprofit focused on the educational and health needs of Milwaukee women and children. Tenor High School has a very focused mission. It offers students the opportunity to earn both a high school diploma and a Milwaukee Area Technical College certificate in a specific area of concentration. This is a great combination, and Tenor students avail themselves successfully of this opportunity, thus completing high school with college credit, poised to continue at MATC or elsewhere. And I want to note that they mentioned one of their top students who actually earned 23 college credits, and noted that essentially paid for, I don't remember whether it was a him or her, so I'll say him or her, his or hers first year of college. So that's really remarkable. This is a model school, as the materials in your folder outline. It is financially sound. Its students are performing well across a variety of measures. There is a strong parental involvement, strong leadership, and a good relationship with MATC. But it's a model school, in other words, as the committee spent some time discussing. This is a school that should be replicated, and Bob Catlin from the UWM's Office of Charter Schools spoke to that, as did Marcia Spector, Director of Seeds of Health, and yes, Mike's sister, who had recently met with Tony Evers, incoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction, on that very topic. The committee had a good discussion on how to widen the impact of the charter schools that are doing just what they are supposed to, working to create innovative and successful learning environments for some of Milwaukee's most at-risk students. We spoke to the ways in which UWM and other UW schools could advance the research into charter schools, resulting in better prepared students and teachers, especially for urban environments as challenging as Milwaukee is. It was a pleasure to spend some of the committee's time on such an outstanding charter school, and UW-Milwaukee, Seeds of Health, and the principal and teachers at Tenor High School, as well as the students, are all to be commended. The committee readily voted to recommend approval of the contract extension for the full 5 years, and that resolution will be offered at the end of my report as part of the consent agenda. Item 2 was UW River Falls' presentation of its campus academic plan. The committee next heard this presentation, and we were pleased to have incoming Chancellor Van Galen in the room, who could listen along with us to Connie Foster, the outgoing interim chancellor, who is reverting back to her former role as interim provost, and until this week, the interim provost, and now once again dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. And once we got everybody's title straight, we were pleased to hear about UW River Falls' successful reaccreditation, as mentioned by President Riley, by the Higher Learning Commission, and some of its signature programs in agriculture, teacher ed, STEM education, and a range of high-impact teaching practices. Most interesting was the reexamination by the campus of its entire program array. While the campus is only 47 undergraduate majors, if you count majors, minors, options, emphases, and tracks, it has a total of 130 academic programs. Or its size, this seemed to be too many, resulting in a dilution of its mission and some programs that were neither effective nor sustainable, even before the state's budget tanked. During the past 2 years, Dr. Foster and Dr. Brown have led a comprehensive and rigorous campus-wide review of every program, majors, minors, emphases, tracks, etc. This wasn't the easiest process, but the result was a recommendation that 20% of the university's programs be enhanced, 60% of them maintained, and 20% eliminated, reduced, or rethought. Next year, the campus will work to act on that recommendation. The committee was impressed by that process and also with the university's sense of identity and awareness of its strengths as well as its challenges. I want to commend the interim leadership at River Falls, which is handing over to Chancellor Van Gellen, an institution in very strong shape. Next item were the first readings of revised missions statements for UW Stout and La Crosse. Both campuses followed inclusive processes for revising their missions, allowing for repeated input from governance groups and faculty, staff, and students campus-wide. UW Stout was guided by its polytechnic designation and identity. UW La Crosse had not revised its mission statement in 20 years and clearly needed to develop a statement that was current and pointed to how the campus identified itself. The next stage in the mission revision process is for both campuses to conduct public hearings of their new mission statements presided over by a regent. Following the public hearing, each campus will bring back its proposed mission to the board for our approval. We then turn to the report of Senior Vice President Rebecca Martin. She first reviewed with us the annual tenure, promotion, and renewal report. You will recall that each June the committee accepts that report containing the names of all those faculty members who have been newly tenured, promoted, and hired with tenure. Rebecca also reviewed for us the tenure and renewal data disaggregated by minority status and gender, something the committee has asked for each year. We always appreciate this opportunity to take the time to recognize the incredible talent, hard work, and dedication of our faculty. The committee had a good discussion with input from several of the provosts on the kind of investment institutions make when they hire new faculty and the lengths to which they go to regularly evaluate and mentor them so that they can be successful. As Interim Provost from Madison said, coaching to win. If you look at the report, you'll see that 98% of those who were considered for tenure in 2009 system-wide received it. While this doesn't mean that everyone who is hired gets tenured in the UW, what it does mean is that somewhere along the usually 6 years it takes to come up for tenure, some individuals may not have been renewed, but it is a very transparent process. We then took action on the revisions to UWS's chapters 17 and 18. Let me back up. I missed one step to say. Our action to accept the tenure and promotion report is the final official step in the tenuring process, and it will be part of the consent agenda as well at the end of this report. Coming to the proposed revisions of 17 and 18, let me briefly summarize the committee's discussion and action yesterday prior to moving Resolution 11F. We postponed our action last month so that we could gather some additional information from the campuses, consult further with a couple of key constituents, and consider further revisions to the proposed rules based on the discussion and feedback we received last month. The additional information collected from the campuses is in your materials. And perhaps most noteworthy is the fact that overall there are not a lot of suspensions system-wide, and there are even fewer expulsions in any given year. Regent Spector reviewed for us the revisions made since last month, highlighted again in our materials. Two of the most significant changes were in the section detailing the information provided to students under investigation and in the section addressing attorney participation at non-academic disciplinary hearings. In our discussion, committee members focused on language changes that sought to clarify and emphasize both the educational purpose of the misconduct hearings and the expectation that students would participate and speak for themselves at these hearings. Those involved in making the changes since May, Regent Spector, Regent Thomas, General Counsel Brady, Jane Ledoux from Operations Audit and Review, acknowledged that the revisions would not make everyone happy, but that they did reflect a whole lot of conscientious deliberation and consultation. We were joined by Regents Bartell, Vasquez, and Drew. Regent Bartell was particularly helpful in crystallizing for many of us a remaining sticking point in the language on misconduct hearings, the extent of the hearing examiner's authority in determining the conditions under which a witness could be questioned, particularly by attorneys. In the end, we decided to write some additional language on Chapter 1712-4C on page 30 of the rules in our materials to address that point. Under the guidance of Pat Brady and Jane Redu, several committee members, including Regents Spector, Thomas, and joined by Regent Bartell, drafted a new sentence for Chapter 1712-4C. I believe we all have language in our folders. The new language specifies that the hearing examiner, quote, may take reasonable steps to maintain order and to adopt procedures for the questioning of a witness appropriate to the circumstances of that witness's testimony, unquote. On a vote of 4-1, the committee recommended approval of Resolution 11F with the amendments just cited to the language in Chapter 1712-4C. In this instance, and others, most members of the committee felt that the language in the rules allowed some latitude and flexibility in how hearing examiners and other campus personnel could implement them. We wanted to ensure that campus personnel could use their professional judgment to ensure both due process for students under investigation and sensitivity toward victims of crimes. We also recommended that an FAQ, otherwise known as frequently asked questions, on the revised rules be developed and training sessions conducted for those who will be working to implement these changes. I would like to now move Resolution 11F, authorizing approval of the proposed rules amending Chapters UWS 17 and 18 and their submission in final draft form to the legislature.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Regent Loftus?
Since you're taking a request, I would like to ask for a roll call vote so I can early. There is a no vote. I didn't have a chance, but I wanted to thank President Riley for plugging my book yesterday. The Art of Legislative Politics, published by Congressional Quarterly Press, and it's available on get many openings like that. But if you read further in the book, you will find the description of what can only be called one of the iron rules of politics, and that is that if you put a bad idea in front of a group enough times, they'll eventually pass it. And this is a bad idea. To extend the long arm of the bureaucracy of a university to off the campus for the regulation and prosecution of off-campus conduct, there is no compelling reason to do this. This university has gotten by more than 150 years without this. Instead of a second chance, we introduce students to double jeopardy. Instead of an educational process, we invent a new legalistic process of prosecution. We throw open the doors to lawyers, but only those students with money will have a right to an attorney. What is worse, the prospect that we are putting women at their most vulnerable at a new risk, where fewer will come forward to report sexual assault, and a process where the victim could be on trial. And I'm paraphrasing there basically what we have seen from letters. And who are these letters from? They're from the Dean of Students of this campus. They're from the Committee on Women in the University from this campus. And they are from Yolanda Garza, the Assistant Dean of Students, Carmen Huckdit, the Violence Prevention Specialist at University Health Services, Tonya Schmidt, the Assistant Dean of Students, and Marlis Howe, the Director of the Domestic Violence Unit of the Dane County District Attorney's Office. They are the co-chairs of the UW-Madison University Subcommittee on Sexual Assault
dating, and domestic violence. Now, I personally feel, as an alumni of this university and a person who lives in this community, that I have an obligation to listen to these people, and another reason I want to oppose this. But with that, Mr. President, I am very happy to just simply vote no. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Regent Walsh?
It's interesting that Tom and I come at this from a different angle. My concern is that we have spent 5 years talking about the importance of access to an education, and that comes in various kind of obstacles or roads. One is cost, one is information, one is diversity. Bottom line is we think this is a pretty important place to be at, and it's one of the assets of this great state, as well as we think the future of our young people. And my concern was that suddenly we are going to expel or suspend or take steps that takes these rights away. And my concern was that the students be provided with due process. I was astounded to hear at least 2 of the, quote, investigators, that's the prosecutor of whatever conduct we decide to be part of the process. I was astounded to hear them say that having a representative or an attorney will be an obstacle to the truth. And it's not because I'm a lawyer, it's just that I've been through these hearings. I have represented people in these hearings. And the biggest evil is, in my view, the power of the investigator, because they plea bargain, they tell the kid, that the student, you know, we could expel you, but if you sign this document, we'll only take you out of a class, or we'll ask you to pay restitution. And I come from the point where most of the negotiation is done long before the involvement of a representative or an attorney. And those few cases I have been involved in, I thought we did find the truth. And interestingly, they were both reversed. And so I was just astounded to hear that comment, that a student being helped somehow is an obstacle to the truth. Well, another way of saying it is the investigator has made his decision, and he's right. He determines the truth. So I was pleased to see that at least in suspension and expulsion, they have a right to an attorney. This new change, and I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday, I guess I'm not going to object to it. I'm not sure why we have a sentence that says, shall observe recognized legal privileges. I don't know why they wouldn't. Why do we have to have a sentence that says it? And to say that you're going to take reasonable steps to maintain order is a statement of fact, and that's fine. I just want to make sure that when we adopt procedures for the questioning of witnesses appropriate to the circumstances, that we have some standards of what we're talking about. I have no objection to the language, and I think we should let it play out, because as we all know, and again, this was an interesting fact, there's only been like 2 to 3 of these hearings in the last couple of years, so it's not like this is a big intrusion to have a legal representative there. But my concern was different than Tom's. I was concerned about, after fighting, kicking, scratching, and screaming to let young people have an education, we would let a system throw it out on the guys, or throw them out on the guys that it's, quote, an educational experience. I'm sorry, this isn't an educational experience when you're going to create a record for a young person's life that he has to report to every licensing body and probably every other institution that he wants to attend. These are serious matters. I'm pleased that they can have representatives. I just hope in the implementation and execution of these, quote, reasonable circumstances, we put a little meat on the bones, and if they do have facts and questions, I would request that they be reviewed by the Board of Regents, because I hope the Board of Regents will always stand by and protect the students in these situations. We've made the decision to take action because of something outside campus. I agree with Tom, that's a real step. But once having made it, let's give them due process.
Regent Crane.
just want to respond to two things. One, David's comment about item number 2 under the suggested changes, which I believe is already there. Is that is not an addition?
I don't know when it got there, but I'm not sure why you have to state the obvious.
But and then I want to address point 3, which playing off of Tom's last comment, and the reason that was added yesterday after a good deal of discussion was because of the concern for especially sexual assault victims, but other kinds of situations is perhaps also, and that it in fact is saying something that is already self-evident apparently to people who have done these kinds of hearings, but was not self-evident to us, and thought it ought to be clearly stated. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion on this side? Regent Vasquez?
Like Regent Loftus, I'm concerned about who would be represented by legal counsel, and one of the concerns that I have would be for those students that may not have the means, may have the desire, may have the fear and the want to be represented, but may not have the financial means to do it. Will there be any possibility that the institution, which is kind of interesting that it would find itself in this situation, but of helping in those rare instances when a student may want to or needs or fears that without that kind of representation, their voice may not be heard clearly? Is there any way that the institutions can provide, whether it be as simple as just simply a list of attorneys that may be willing to do something on a pro bono basis or anything else, but I am concerned that that we may have a situation where somebody can financially afford to be represented and someone else may not be in such a position and yet may find themselves just very fearful of the process.
Mike, you want to respond to that, whether there was any discussion?
The survey that Jane Redoux did reflected that certain of the schools do in one way or another help out, but not all. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in the resolution that requires them to do so. We certainly could encourage it. Specifically, and Jane is back there as well, 3 of the schools, one had a list they submitted out of attorneys. Jane, correct? Correct. And the other 2, I've forgotten. It's in her thing here, Jose.
Yeah.
The page 5 of the pink sheet. As to 3 UW institutions indicate legal services are available. Each of these 3 indicate that representation of Chapter 17 hearings has not been provided through these legal services. However, UW Eau Claire report legal services funded through segregated fees are available 1 evening per week. Green Bay said the Dean of Students' Office makes available a list of law firms providing low-cost legal services to students. Stevens Point indicated legal aid is available to students. So some do and some don't. We could certainly encourage more to do so.
I guess that's my point, is that there be a little bit more consistency, or at least that there be clearly a desire on our part to ensure that we help those students. Because obviously, and I do agree with Regent Walsh, that this is a very, very important step in an individual's potential professional career, and I'd hate to have something happen that because of the lack of representation, if they needed it, if they feared that they would not be well heard, that we could do some significant harm to their professional career.
Regent Bartel.
I think we all have to keep in mind what we're talking about here. It's a very limited situation. Mm-hmm. As far as the assistance of an attorney is concerned, you can get under the proposal, you can have assistance of an attorney in any proceeding, but it is only in very limited circumstances where the attorney has the authority to question witnesses or speak on behalf of the student. we're talking only about situations where the acts that constitute the basis of the disciplinary proceeding constitute a crime, or have been charged as a crime, and secondly, where the sanction that is sought is either suspension or expulsion. As I understand it, there are very few of those cases throughout the system, and so it's only in those limited circumstances. Now, the addition that was discussed yesterday applies only to that second category, when the attorney has the authority to participate in the hearing, and it is in those circumstances that the new language permits the hearing examiner to determine the method and mode of examination of witnesses, which means, say in the sexual assault case, where the victim does not want to confront the person that she believes assaulted her, the hearing examiner could have that person in a separate room or by video conference, or even require the attorney to submit written questions to the examiner to be asked by the examiner. This is a procedure that is common in the criminal law. Trial judges have that authority and use it from time to time, not often. And I don't think it would be used often here either, but it does protect victims who are sensitive, whether they're sexual assault victims or any other kind of victim or witness. So it is a reasonable, I think, a reasonable protection for those witnesses and a reasonable response to the concerns that were raised and that Regent Loftus mentioned. This is a balance, as was said. We're talking about disciplinary proceeding. We're talking about the rights of students to defend themselves in that kind of proceeding. You're not going to find a solution that satisfies everyone.
Regent Loftus?
Well, just on that point and our interpretation of what goes on, or our understanding of what goes on, I mean, we have the Dean of Students writing us, quote, "First, we cannot assume that these situations will be rare. While currently very few cases result in suspension or expulsion, in almost all cases, students could be charged with a crime in violation of Chapter 17.
Any other discussion on this side? Regent Walsh?
Yeah, we got to straighten something out here. Jeff just said could be charged with a crime. The way I read the rule is charged with a crime, and that's a significant difference.
Yes, it has been charged. I didn't say could be.
Yeah, well, you did, and because it caught my ear. But now that we know it is charged, let's leave it at that. But the second thing is, I have never understood this, and I've never been involved in a criminal case where a lawyer was required to submit questions in it. I've never heard of that before, and I never heard us describe that at any time. I mean, if this rule means that the hearing examiner can tell the student who's going to be expelled that he can only submit questions in writing, I'm not going to vote for that. I didn't read that into this reasonable circumstances. Mike, is that what was discussed?
May I comment?
Yes.
That was discussed, David. Your reaction, Tom's reaction, reflects the wide disparity of opinions that we have been working with. This process has been undergone for, at least 2.5 years of trying to rewrite these rules. If I may go a little farther with a little history, one of the original incentives to rewrite the rules was a concern, especially in Milwaukee, but not just in Milwaukee, that the properties adjoining the university should have some protection for behavior of students that was well beyond the boundaries of reasonableness. But in addition, while the rules were being looked at for that reason, they were looked at for other reasons as well. The lawyer issue came up as part of that, and certainly the sexual harassment and other things came to the fore in that. All things considered, though, we cannot write something here that satisfies all those who believe in terrific criminal due process for students, off-campus sanctions for off-campus behaviors that satisfy some limited descriptions we've given, etc. And these letters and what Tom says reflects it. I personally think that it is important that we extend our sanctions for bad behavior to limited off-campus circumstances, and this is very limited. I personally believe we should have some kind of due process, but not criminal due process. As David says, he's troubled by this. This has gone on for a long time, and as part of our discussion, we agreed that in certain limited circumstances, there could be changes in how business is done, including submitting questions through an examiner. Yes. We thought that that would best left to the discretion of the examiner or the committee, that they would use good judgment, that we would review this over time and see how it worked out, and that it was an incremental but important step forward in all regards. And I would urge us, notwithstanding these very good comments, which we could make for hours here, to move ahead and adopt this and get on with it. I think it's the best we can do if we're going to do something, and we should do something in this area. I will also point out one last thing. Many of the letters we got were written before our final revisions. I don't think they accurately reflect what we have before you. There are certain misstatements, not based on bad intentions, but just based on a lack of information about what we wound up with.
Regent Davis and Regent Loftus.
And to that latter point, I can't put my hand on one of the gentlemen who had originally sent a 2- or 3-page letter expressing concerns, sent a revision after the revision, basically saying, you know, it's really hard to achieve a balance where everybody's happy. And I appreciate the fact that you did what you did over the period of time that you did and listened to all the people that you, I'm paraphrasing this letter, and in essence reversed himself in terms of his opposition to. He thought that the revision was a reasonable response to the concerns that had been raised. So I do think that that should be also noted. And I also want to say that while, with all respect to Regent Loftus about the letters from Madison, we received equal number, if not more, emails from the folks in Milwaukee protesting the delay in acting on these rules. I don't know if you all got them, but I got a bunch of emails that were, you know, basically saying the same thing. So the point I want to make is that, to echo what Regent Spector just said, that this process, not only has it gone on and tons of consultation have been achieved and responses, witness the amendments, have been created. And I think that we need to let the process, meaning the authority, if you will, common sense, professionalism of the hearing process, whether it is an examiner or a committee, sort of shake this out, and presuming that it gets through the legislature, which is the next phase once we're done. So I believe that we should approve this resolution with the amendment that was achieved yesterday, because in essence we will never come up with language that will appease everybody, and there will be legitimacy on both sides, if you had two sides, to the arguments about why things should be further reviewed. So I just think that we should get on with it. It's in fairness to those who have worked on this and worked on this. I want to specifically reference Pat Brady and Jane Redu. I mean, I really do think that we need to move on, and I would hope that and urge my colleagues to support the resolution with the amendments.
Regent Loftus.
Well, a word about the process. You know, you get intelligent, dedicated, experienced people in a room. They come up with something. This is how General Motors got the Hummer. The product and the process should be separated. I mean, I'm guilty of this in my career many times, of using the process to pass the product. But let's talk about Milwaukee. And I would, I guess, like someone from Milwaukee's view on this. It seems to me the neighbors are getting snookered here. That when you have language that the municipal violations have to be serious and repeated, what does that mean for the neighbors of UWM? Does that does that solve their problem?
Regent Spector, I believe that you have dealt with that language. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, I would point out that the list of behaviors for which sanctions are appropriate include many things, as is in your materials. Municipal violations is just one. The serious ones are felonies, sexual-related things, etc. There's a long list of them. I can read them if you want. Municipal violations is but one of those, and we thought because municipal violations range from walking a dog without a leash to disorderly conduct, we ought to try to differentiate among them. But we couldn't find anything that was a serious violation that wasn't picked up in some other category other than a municipal violation. So it's really a catch-all at the end for something that probably isn't listed in one of the other 10 categories or whatever the number is, but a noise ordinance perhaps, where a warning would be appropriate perhaps in the beginning. Now remember, the neighbors may call the Milwaukee police who may act on this, but more often than not they're very busy and they can't act on some of these things, so it gave an opportunity for the university to try to better control areas adjacent to the university through these ordinances that the police didn't have time to enforce, perhaps. And we thought it was important that it not just be serious, but also repeated in fairness to again, striking a balance between these different things. And I would point out that the letters we got were not just from Milwaukee. We got a letter from the Stevens Point area. When I was in Marinette, they talked about it. There are neighbors in these other areas who are concerned about these behaviors and feel the university has a responsibility in some reasonable fashion to try to balance the rights of the students off campus, particularly in very nearby areas, with those of the residents. That's the background. I don't think they've gotten... Nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. It may be arguable as to whether or not a particularly loud party is a violation or not, but it does give very well-meaning, good university people who I've now had a chance to meet with an opportunity to have something more to use to deal with the problems. And I will say just quickly, as part of this, and I want David to know this too, I met with some of the examiners that he was concerned about and what they said at our meeting, and I found them to be reasonable and helpful, and that what we've written here reflects their, not necessarily their agreement about the concepts, but certainly their strong helpfulness in devising the language that we have now. And I think it's acceptable as micro language, even if the macro attorney present is still an issue for them.
Regent Thomas.
First, I'd like to just state again that I've been quite involved in the process, and I think that's I'd like to recognize the leadership of the board and the system for allowing one of the student regents to be involved and for allowing that voice to be at the table. I'll say it once more that this is a product of a long compromise and a process that has gone back and forth. Jane Radu has certainly put in many hours on this and has acted as negotiator in a lot of circumstances. So thank you for that, Jane. Students initially came out in fierce opposition to having any rule be made, and there are theoretical reasons that we shouldn't have a rule. I recognize that too. I think we've heard from several campuses, and they would prefer to not have a change in statute. But given that we are at this point in the process, and given the compromise that is currently before us, I've heard from many students who have followed the process in these last months who are in at least tacit support of the document. So, thank you.
Any other discussion on this side? Regent Connolly-Kiesler.
I think I've changed my vote in my head 3 times in the last 15 minutes on this discussion, because my head says one thing, but my heart, having worked with victims of domestic violence, obviously are going to say something else, knowing how a system can sometimes not work. And I guess my question is, this committee or the examiners or whoever are going to be in charge of this, are we going to get back a report in a year that says what has happened? Because the systems don't always work for victims. So, I feel a lot more comfortable if you say in a year we're going to have a report back that says these were the ones that came forward, this is how it was handled, this is who had an attorney, this is who didn't have an attorney, and this was the result, than just voting on this and then going, well, let's hope it works.
I think we can. I mean, I don't know if I'm the appropriate person to respond, but I don't know why we couldn't. We can ask for reports on anything.
Eileen, are you finished? I recognize Regent Crane.
Can I get an answer that yes, we can get this back?
What I was going to say, for some of the same reasons and the same background that has been expressed by Eileen, I was, at some point this morning, going to ask that there be a report back at some point, maybe in a year, so that we do know what has happened and how this has played out.
Well, how can you get a report on sexual assaults that are not reported?
Okay, I think the answer is you can, Eileen, without any question. I think that's within the power of the system administration and Rebecca or Kevin to request that records be kept, reports be prepared, without any question. If you want to make it formal, we can do that, but I think you can probably, if Kevin would agree, trust to his administrative power to do that. Sure. I think it's a good idea, particularly in this situation.
Eileen, are you finished? Okay, Regent Walsh.
There are two issues here. One is, do we take action on off-campus activities? I'm not concerned about that. This board is, the recommendation is that we do, and I'm just not concerned after watching the wonky situation. But then what has crept into this whole thing is, oh, and by the way, we're going to change the procedure of the hearing. And I'm here talking about the hearing. If I think that an investigator, or excuse me, a hearing examiner has the right to require a lawyer to submit written questions to a witness, you're cross-examining your witness. You don't know what the answer is. When you cross-examine, you go from the answer to the next question. I have never heard of that in any criminal proceeding I've ever been involved with. I taught it at the law school. I've never heard of anybody being relegated to submitting written questions. If that's what this change means, it's a violation of due process. It's unfair to the students that we're trying to defend. And I'm talking about expulsion and suspension. Now, yes, there's reasonable people out there, and I'm not critical of anybody. I'm sure that everybody who is involved in this process is doing it in their with good intentions. And I hope my criticism of the substance isn't a criticism of the people. But to claim that, quote, nothing is perfect, end of quote, when you deal with due process, doesn't work. I mean, we have great protections so that we don't convict innocent people. We should have great protections so we don't throw out of school individuals that may not have done what they're charged with. And so all I am saying to you is that this sentence about reasonable steps to adopt procedures for the questioning of witnesses appropriate to the circumstances. I've heard the argument about the sensitivity of sexual abuse. But this applies also to the neighbor who says, I don't want to testify in that room because I'm afraid those kids will beat me up. And the next thing you know, the students don't have any way of questioning the prosecuting witness. And I'm just saying to you that, you can't do it so that you take away all the due process rights. This sentence seems to give an awfully free range to the hearing examiner. And I know they're good people. I hope, but there are a lot of good judges. So it's the process I object to.
Regent Vasquez.
I look at 2 and 3, and I see them as balancing each other, in that 2 very clearly says you must recognize legal privileges. And to me, that implies that there are certain protocols or certain practices that are embedded in legal practice that should be followed. Number 3, to me, is more of what the latter part that Regent Walsh was talking about, the decorum of how the the hearing is conducted, the maintaining an orderly environment, ensuring that witnesses or anyone is not feeling intimidated or harassed. And I feel that just by the culture of a university environment, that our hope is to try to keep students, as many students as we can, to fulfill their stated goal and purpose, which is to finish their education, and not to use these hearings or any other disciplinary action to very quickly get them out of the system. So I would hope that number 3 is just a very firm reminder to the hearing examiner, to the process, that we need to be maintaining order, we need to protect individuals, we need to create an environment that does allow the process to move forward, but does not intimidate, does not harass. So to me, I don't see where it's automatically assumed here that the attorneys will be asked, you have to submit things in writing. But it's more, let's ensure that the hearings are conducted in a professional, in an environment that really does not create a hostile, for the person that's there trying to either be a witness or needs protection. So I'm not that worried that this is saying every attorney, you've got to send in your questions 48 hours in advance, and if it's not written in advance and whatever, I don't think that's what at least I don't interpret that in light of point number 2.
Any other discussion? Regent Burmaster, then Regent Loftus.
So just a few points of clarification. If it is passed by the Regents, it moves on to the legislature? Okay. All right. I'd like to maybe hear from a few chancellors, because, to bring up that one of those great schools, Madison West, you might remember that it is smack in the middle. There are 2,000 students who are placed right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So good part of my 10 years there was dealing exactly with what UWM deals with, okay, with probably even more mischievous children. And I got to tell you, I agree with David that we got to be really, really careful if indeed it's saying what you think it's saying, David. So could we hear? Talking about point number 3. Yeah. Because if you're going to go to that step of the off-campus, you better be sure it's real clear due process. Can we hear from? Are there any chancellors who'd be given our discussion right here to tell us your reaction to this? Because you're the folks who are actually doing it. What's it going to really mean as an administrator, this interpretation?
Any comments from the chancellors?
Never seen that.
Not even Regent Wells.
Not even Wells.
I would recognize Chancellor Markey.
I'm leaving.
Come to the microphone, David.
I do believe it's a reasonable compromise. We've had our staff pretty actively involved with Mike and others all along the way. If any one of the people that have been involved had their choice, it would be a little different. But I think, as I asked the staff that have been real active with this over the last year and a half, 2 years, can we live with this? Can we try this? Will it be effective? The answer was yes. We're dealing with a rare situation to begin with. And if it gives the toolbox that the people that are involved with this need, and we have a professional staff, I believe it works. And it has worked. Otherwise, you'd be having many cases before you. that have moved all the way through, and they'd be at this board, and they aren't. So we're dealing with a very rare situation to begin with. And I think it works. I think the right protections for both the student are in place as well as the institution. And I think it's a good position we're in.
Good. How then do we reconcile what Tom read from the dean's letter that said to assume that this is rare, that this will be rare? Can somebody reconcile that for me? What was, Tom, what you read? Was that from it?
The Dean of Students here.
I can explain that if you want. What Tom read was that in the proposal, it says that a lawyer may participate actively if there's a sanction of suspension, a sanction of expulsion requested, or if on the same facts as are before the hearing examiner or the committee, there is pending a criminal charge for those facts. What the dean said is, well, the district attorney could charge anybody with a crime, so that isn't much of a protection. What can I say? I don't know exactly what district attorney. My experience is they don't lightly charge people with crimes, students in particular, but they certainly could.
Depending on the political
And
pressure
her
in the
argument
neighborhood.
is, therefore, there could be more cases where lawyers could be present than we might think there would be. That's what she's saying. Lawyers may be just coming off the walls here if the district attorneys choose to charge crimes, because crimes include misdemeanors as well as felonies. That's the point that she's making there. I hope that...
Can I make an amendment? I'm trying to find a solution. Let me propose an amendment, and if nobody likes it, nobody seconds it. I would take paragraph 3 and add to the end, after the word testimony, strike the period, put comma, and say provided, however, comma, whatever procedure is adopted, comma, the student is provided due process in the questioning of witnesses, period. That therefore gives some statement that we've got to be sensitive to the student's right to question a witness. And what I'm getting at is, of course, we want to be sensitive to the victim that can't come forward. I don't know that we have a history of that, and I've never heard of that, but we've got to be sensitive, and we will be. I'm more concerned about the student that can't question a witness because he's told he has to submit it in writing. And this just gives you a general statement. If the guy is supposed to be appropriate to the circumstances, then he also has to pay attention to the due process rights of the student in questioning the witness.
Regent Spector, do you...
I need a second.
Maybe you won't get a second.
I'm sorry.
I second it.
So that's a motion. It's been seconded. Will the...
I'd like to comment. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I would urge you to reject that for 2 reasons. We have tried here to find a middle ground between Eileen's concern, for example, or Judy's concern, and Danae's concern about what may happen in a hearing, David, and what you're saying, which would be an extreme kind of due process. I think we're making too much of the submitting the questions in writing. It could happen. It's as hypothetical as some of the other things. It's unlikely to happen much. We haven't heard of it happening, but rarely. I think to base the language on that would be overweighing.
Can you tell me when they would ever do it?
I guess there could be a situation where they had a particularly vulnerable appearing witness with legitimate concerns about the facts of a certain circumstance and a very overbearing lawyer. Possible.
How do you cross-examine in advance?
No, but there are other ways. Right now they can separate people in different rooms. Second point, and I hope you take this the way I mean it. I'm going to disappoint a lot of people here, but I'll put on my lawyer's hat, my education lawyer's hat, to tell you that there is no right to due process under the Constitution beyond the 12th grade. There isn't. Everybody thinks there is. The only case in this circuit is a 1993 case where Judge Posner said there is no property interest in higher education. It's a privilege still. It isn't a property right. It isn't like a K-12 education. And if you use the word due process, you're truly going to change what these people have to do and do away with the educational aspect of it, where they want to have a dialogue, where they want people to talk about what they've done, where they don't want to assess guilt automatically, but they do want to try to get people to talk about things to understand them better. So there's not only a legal right to it, but I think as a practical matter, there being no legal right, you'll be putting words in that will totally subvert the process that they have now. And I know you mean well in doing it, but it's a dynamite amendment, and I urge people to reject it. With all respect to my lawyer
got me in
colleague.
the category of doing right, or meaning well.
Not a comfortable place, is it?
Don't worry, we're not buying that part.
Yeah. Everything
All right,
else is good.
procedurally, we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion to amend, and it's been seconded, so we are discussing the motion to amend. Is there any other discussion on the motion to amend? Regent Loftus.
Well, to follow up on David's point and a couple of other things, I mean, the one chancellor we had speak had a pretty low hurdle, that is, can we live with this? I'm not sure that's a ringing endorsement. My concern is with David here. Two things. Regardless of whether we have a report or not, we will not know if this results in fewer reports of sexual abuse or harassment. However, likely, even though these people are well-meaning, that instead of going to the expulsion and the suspension process, they will use the threat of it. Because you tell the student, well, if you don't agree to this, then you have to hire a lawyer, and then there's all of this, and it'll be a big expense, and we don't want to go there, and we don't want to move to the suspension or expulsion. I mean, well-meaning or not, it seems to me that would be human nature, that will create a process that these people will then want to avoid, but use the threat of the process to cow the student.
May I ask Regent Spector?
Yes, sir.
If the motion to amend was defeated and we had the language as has been presented to us, and if one of these campus examiners, hearing officers, did something as has been posed here as a theoretical possibility, could you explain the procedure for the aggrieved student in terms of appeal rights and how the path that would result in us looking at that?
I believe they have an appeal to the chancellor of right after a hearing examiner or committee, and then ultimately an appeal here.
2 appeals. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to amend? Regent Burmester.
Do the non-lawyer regents have the right now to consult attorneys on how to vote here?
Which one are we going to pick?
No more than the non-musician regents have the right to consult on issues of arts and humanities, Regent Burmester.
Mark, can I, and I'm going to try another solution. I'm sensitive to Mike's concern about the magic words of due process. So really, all I'm trying to do is say that the student is still allowed to effectively question the witness. Would that get it over your hurdle of introducing due process? All we're saying is you can change the way you allow witnesses to testify, but you still must allow him to effectively question the witness. And
what's the words, David?
So the word is, that provided, however, whatever procedure is adopted, the student is allowed to effectively question the witness. That doesn't raise it to a level of due process.
In the prior section, it says they have a right to question adverse witnesses. Here we've said any witness. I don't think that's a problem.
Do we have to split the infinitive?
So I would make that a friendly amendment.
Do you need a second on a friendly?
Well, wait a minute here. I'm the seconder here. You're
Well, then
giving
don't
up on
do it.
due process?
Yes. I'm only talking about effectively questioning the witnesses. My concern is that the examiner says, I'm sorry, go in the next room and send in written questions. Well, you can't do that. And I just heard everyone say that that might be a solution. So I don't want him to have the ability to preclude the effective questioning of witnesses against him or her.
And what's the language again?
The language would read, after the word testimony, comma, provided, however, whatever procedure is adopted, comma, the student is allowed to effectively question the witness.
Well, I guess I'll sentence that, but I'm going to make a motion. Second that. But I'm
Try
going
not to sentence anybody.
I don't even know if that's a real slip. But I'm going to make a motion to put this on the table for further consideration after this amendment is adopted. So I would second this amendment again.
Okay, the motion...
Mark? Mike had something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
I just have a quick question. Is it said anywhere else that they have the right to question the witnesses?
Yes, in the prior section.
So why do we need to say it again?
Because they just took it away.
No, they didn't.
No. There's a prior section that says you can question witnesses. This section goes much more to the procedure for doing that, which was a way to balance the interests that were talked about of a concern, particularly in the sexual-related things, of there being discretion in the hearing examiner or committee to make some changes that would weigh the different circumstances of the witness and everybody else. Dave is now saying it still has to be effective. I don't think that undermines the point that we reached yesterday in the committee. And that's why it has to be said again, because the first time that isn't qualified with this concept of weighing the different interests.
Any other discussion on the motion to amend, which has been modified by Regent Walsh, and that modification has been seconded by the seconder? Okay, all in favor of the motion to amend, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. So we have on the floor Regent Davis's motion for passing Resolution 11F. Regent Loftus, for any further discussion on that motion.
I would make a motion to table this item of the agenda.
Non-debatable if there's a second.
If there's a second. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Sorry, guys, I second it.
Okay. That motion is a non-debatable motion? Yes.
I'm not sure that's a proper motion at this point.
To table?
Yes. And that's the discussion I had with General Counsel Craig a while before. The motion to table is only supposed to be other urgent business. Proper motion would be a motion to postpone.
I'll make a motion to postpone this piece of dog roll.
So there's been and I assume you would withdraw your motion to table. So there's been a motion to postpone, and Regent Burmaster has seconded that motion, and that motion is also non-debatable. No, that motion is debatable. To postpone is debatable. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone, Regent Crane?
I want to hear the rationale.
This is not ready to go to the legislature.
And how will it get ready?
Not my job.
Yes, it is. We're part of the group
I'm
here.
against moving it to off-campus. It can never be ready.
That's right. Okay. Regent Davis, on the question of postponing.
And that is the very reason, the last statement that Regent Loftus made is the very reason that I urge my colleagues to not support this motion. Because he doesn't, and that's his prerogative, doesn't want to see it at all. There is no, and so number one, I think that that is not a proper thing for us to do in terms of our responsibilities as a Board of Regents in terms of these rules. Number two, I want to argue again about the compromise, the delicate compromise that has been attained through consultation all over our system with all of our constituents, none of whom are likely 100% happy, And as is the case with this amendment that came out of our committee yesterday that has been amended again, you amend to address one concern, and then now up pops the opposite side's concern. And so I don't think we're going to benefit after 2.5 years of consultation up, down, across, down, back, forth. I don't think we're going to benefit from additional delay for our purposes. There's not another argument. There's not a new argument. There's not a new piece of evidence. There's not a different piece of facts that are going to be presented to us that haven't already been presented by all of the constituents. So I think we ought to honor our responsibility and enact this as amended resolution to move the process forward. And I think the fact that we will get reports that let us know how it actually operates will allow us to continue to operate or exercise our responsibility as a Board of Trustees.
I move the previous question.
I was going to ask a question to try to... Too late.
I would second that, but I'm afraid that Rupert Theobald over here would overturn me.
All it requires you to do is, if I get a second, we can vote on his motion.
Well, it has been seconded. So the motion for our consideration is to pass Resolution 11F as amended.
No, it's to vote on his motion.
Postpone.
I'm sorry, that's what you did. Okay.
Wasn't my first choice.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. It's all right. So you are now voting on Regent Loftus's motion to postpone.
No, we're voting to vote. We're stopping debate. We're voting. The previous question moves to stop debate.
Okay, you're right.
I seconded it.
It was seconded by Regent Loftus. All in favor of the motion to cease debate on the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That was enthusiastic. So now I'm going to ask you to vote on Resolution 11F.
No.
Postpone. That's right. I stopped keeping my chronological order.
You need representation.
No.
Parliamentarian.
We have ceased debate, and now all in favor of the motion to postpone, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. That motion is defeated. So
I
we are
move the
back
previous question on the resolution as amended.
That's been moved and seconded. So all in favor
Wait,
of...
we're going to have a roll call vote.
This is on previous question.
Question. Okay.
Previous question on the resolution as amended.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Now a roll call vote.
Now it's been asked for a roll call vote on Resolution 11F as amended.
Aye.
Regent Madison.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Spector.
Aye.
Regent Smith. Aye. Regent Pruitt.
Yes.
Regent Upton.
Aye.
Regent Loftus.
No.
Regent Cabo.
Aye.
Regent Drew.
Yes.
Regent Davis.
Aye.
Regent Key.
Yes.
Regent Crane.
Aye.
Regent Conlon Heathcliff.
Aye.
Regent Burmaster.
No.
Regent Bradley.
Aye.
Regent Bartel.
Aye.
There are 15 ayes and 2 noes.
Good. Thank you very much. The resolution passes.
That was a nice one for you to go out on.
You may have noticed he was already out.
So, Mr. President, I'll quickly get through the last of my report since
Yes, we are still in Regent Davis's report.
So, I do want to thank those people who devoted so much time and energy to this process, the Chapter 17 and 18 Review Committee, Pat Brady, Jane Redu, and Regent Thomas. And I especially want to thank Mike Spector for his gracious and inclusive leadership of this very complex rule revision process. As I said yesterday, he went above and beyond in seeking consultation and reconsultation to make sure that all voices could be heard and to balance as much as humanly possible the competing interests and concerns of many, many people. Despite protests to the contrary, This 2.5-year process has been open and transparent and has had enormous integrity. I commend those who worked so hard to preserve that. Now moving on to our consent agenda, Regent Bradley, in addition to the minutes from its May 7th, 2009 meeting, the Education Committee unanimously approved 7 resolutions that I now present as consent agenda items for approval by the full board. Resolution 11A, approving the extension of the charter school contract with Seeds of Health, Inc. to maintain a charter school known as Tenor High School. Resolution 11D, Paren 2, authorizing implementation of the BA/BS in Women's Studies at UW-La Crosse. Resolution 11D, Paren 3, authorizing implementation of the BS in Game Design and Development at UW-Stout. Resolution 11D4, authorizing implementation of the BS in Property Management at UW-Stout. Resolution 11D5, approving 2 UW system appointments to the Natural Areas Preservation Council. Resolution 11D6, approving the proffer from the trustees of the William F. Vilas Trust Estate for support of scholarships, fellowships, professorships, and special programs in arts and humanities, social sciences, and music. And Resolution 11E2, accepting the 2009-10 report on promotions, tenure designations, and related academic approval items.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I'm wondering if 11A, the charter school, shouldn't be removed from the consent. You were asking for the, you recused yourself from that discussion and vote yesterday.
If you could remove that one and vote on it separately, I'd appreciate it.
All right, there's been a request to remove 11A from the consent agenda. All in favor of, with that one removed?
Could I just make one comment about it?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain because my sister is the executive director of the Seeds of Health, and while it isn't a direct conflict, I think it's inappropriate that I vote. And I did not vote yesterday. In fact, I was not in the room yesterday when it was discussed. I just wanted the record to show that.
Okay.
Thank you.
With Resolution 11A removed, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Is there a motion for Resolution 11A?
And I abstain.
Yes, and Judy, if you would reflect that Regent Spector abstained from that vote.
Why did you abstain on that vote?
I thought that was the vote on the tenor.
That was on the
We're about to.
consent agenda with that item removed.
I vote yes. Yes.
So you voted yes on that.
I move on 11A.
Okay, there's a motion to approve Resolution 11A and seconded. Is there any discussion? And would you like to recuse yourself from that, abstain from voting? All in favor of Resolution 11A, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And Regent Spector abstains.
Thank you.
So let me conclude, Mr. President, by observing that the Education Committee adjourned at 3:59 p.m., and thank you very much for that opportunity to present that very meaty report.
You're welcome, and thank you. I now call upon Regent Smith to present the report of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee.
I'm editing as we speak. We want to start with under the expanding access through integration in UW's system. We heard from Chancellor Wilson, a presentation about the ongoing efforts and impacts of the integration of UW colleges and extension. Chancellor Wilson indicated that the goal was to identify cost savings and efficiencies that could be achieved through integrating the administrative operations of the Madison administrative offices. He indicated they developed a common vision of maximum access, have made significant strides in strategic planning, and are developing collaborative programs. Excellent report, and appreciated an update. We also heard from Julie Gordon on the subject of UW system identity theft prevention policies. We discussed the status of campus plans to implement the recently established Board of Regents policy addressing red flags, which may indicate potential identity theft activity related to UW financial accounts. Julie reported that all four-year UW institutions and UW colleges have submitted plans for identity theft programs, and that the plans meet the federal requirements. On the issue of federal legislation affecting higher education, we heard from the aforementioned Chris Andrews of two of the Obama administration's priorities impacting higher education. That's increasing the number of Americans with college degrees and an increased emphasis on science. She highlighted changes to student aid, including increasing the amount of the Pell Grant and indexing future increases to the Consumer Price Index plus 1% to address inflation. Chris also emphasized the Obama administration's goal to increase scientific research. His recent budget doubles the funding for National Science Foundation and Department of Energy. Chris's report indicated that she and a campus researcher, I think from UW Stevens Point, have been invited to submit a policy paper for congressional consideration on how all UW system institutions are engaged in research and working with undergraduate students. Tom Andrews gave a report, we also heard a little about this yesterday, on our human resource system, HRS, project planning. Planning should be concluded by late summer on that project, and the project's going well. There'll be a recommended option for us to consider in September. Let's see, I'll move to the consent agenda. Why not? The consent agenda, we're going to remove 12E2, which is this resolution creates a 7-year contract with, I hope I pronounce this right, Avians, LLC, to provide dining services at UW Green Bay. Matt Schuminger, representing food service workers at UW Green Bay, expressed concerns that the contractor has not provided assurances that the existing employees will be hired. Sheila Miller, a food service worker at UW Green Bay, spoke to the committee about the employment ads placed by Avians. The committee moved that the contract come before the full board after more information could be gathered on the future employment of the existing food service workers. In order to begin this discussion, I would move the adoption of Resolution 12E2, and then I'd like to ask Assistant Procurement Director Rich Lampy to update us on his conversation with the vendor. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Been moved and seconded for Resolution 12E2. Any discussion?
Lampy first.
Please.
Good morning. I received a letter late yesterday afternoon from Aviance indicating that they would interview all the current Sodexo Dining Services staff that are interested in employment at the university.
Regent Loftus.
The current company wouldn't happen to be a union company, and the new company a non-union company, would it be?
I guess I can't speak. The current staff is union. Aviance has worked for us and assumed the contract that you approved last year at the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. Superior, and worked with the transition of those employees there and working with...
What union do the employees...
I believe they belong to the same union as the Green Bay employees.
No, I mean the name.
So this is the same group that is at Superior, and they've been at Superior for 1 year?
Correct. That is correct.
And then what has the experience been at Superior?
The workers were hired, and services has continued transition from Chartwell's to Aviance, who has currently operated the food service for the last year.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Regent Drew?
Yeah, I've got great concerns with this. First of all, the fact that they would interview people gives them no assurances that they're going to have a job with the new vendor. Secondly, my understanding is that the new vendor has not responded to requests from the union to sit down and discuss this and bargain. Frankly, I don't understand why we don't have a board policy, and this wouldn't be the place to talk about it, why any RFP that went out where we had a collective bargaining agreement in place would not stipulate that the successful vendor would have to agree to assume the collective bargaining agreement that was in place. But I would be opposed to approving this contract based on the flimsy assurances that they're going to interview people. I would be in favor of it if the new company would stipulate that they would assume the collective bargaining agreement that is in place, and that's very common with new employers coming in, that they assume a collective bargaining agreement, and then when that agreement expires, obviously they would have the right to negotiate a new agreement at that time.
Regent Keane.
Do we know the length of the current contract that's in place? When it would be due to expire?
It's expired.
Oh, it is expired?
No.
So
August 1st, the company would take...
August 1st this year?
Regent Drew?
Okay, the contract for the food service expires August 1st. The contract with the employees and the union runs for another 2.5 years, I believe it is. So that contract is in place, and you have employees with 20 or more years of service in the same place doing the same thing. Now you've got a new employer coming in. They don't even know if they're going to have a job. They don't know what their pay is going to be, what their benefits are going to be, whether they're going to have vacation based on their length of service, whether their seniority is going to be honored. And I don't think we as ultimately it's our money. Okay, we're contracting with somebody to do it, but ultimately it's our money that is at play here, and I don't think that this is a fair way to treat people that provide food services to our students.
Any other discussion? Regent Keane?
I have to say, with that information, it seems inherently wrong that we wouldn't honor the existing contract that these employees are working under when we're switching vendors, and it seems wrong to employ a new vendor that has not agreed to honor that contract.
Okay, Regent Loftus
I would
and
move
Regent
to
Spector.
postpone this consideration of this contract.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to postpone. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? All in favor? I'm sorry, Regent
I
Crane?
just would like to know what will happen after it's postponed.
The question is what will happen as a result of postponing?
Right.
Regent Drew?
Well, my feeling is if the employer comes back and says that they'll assume the collective bargaining agreement, then we would approve the contract at the next meeting.
But what if they don't, and we don't have Sodexo in place anymore for August 1st, and you have to provide food come end of August for students?
Answer the question.
No, we're concerned.
What happens?
What happens?
We will have to negotiate with somebody. The food service is functionally a 365-day-a-year operation. Traditionally, there's a transition period between the contractors, and the employees that are there are well and valued. They're the face of the food service, so the companies typically want them. We have never, while my 18 years of doing this, had a difficult transition for a contractor coming into a sim. If we choose to postpone, we would need to try and figure out how we're going to provide service and who's going to provide service, and it probably isn't going to be Aviance. We're going to probably have to negotiate some sort of an extension. At that point, Sodexo is looking for new homes for their management people, potentially, looking to take other employees, and we're trying to move on and transition. So it would be a difficult thing. And I don't know.
Regent Spector.
I'm sympathetic to what John's saying, but I'm concerned that unless there's some plan in place as to how you could get this done, including what have we done in the past in similar circumstances, just to postpone, I think, would be not in the best interest. I think we ought to postpone with a reason or to a date or to a process
Next meeting.
or something.
I'll amend my motion to postpone to the next meeting.
We talked about this in our committee. We do have a meeting on July 9th.
Correct.
That if it's agreed to and there's further negotiation to be had, that we have a July 9th date. Fortunately, this contract was, this process was a little early, so we might have time to take care of whatever can be taken care of and not go without service.
Okay, we're discussing the motion to postpone. Regent Drew and Regent Connolly-Kiesler.
Well, I think it gives the new vendor ample time to state what their intentions are, and if they choose not to do that, I mean, then it'll be up to the board in July to make a decision, but I also do believe that extensions can be negotiated with the current food service provider while this process is ongoing.
So the motion is to postpone until July
9th.
Correct.
My
Regent
only
Connolly,
concern
please.
is we haven't made other contracts do this. And now we have new rules all of a sudden saying that that in Green Bay's case, we're going to postpone this and we're going to add something that we haven't made anybody else add to their contracts to say that they have to hire or they have to hold the contract for 2.5 years. So how do we go about doing that? How do we have new rules today that we haven't had in the past?
Okay, Regent Smith?
Following up on Eileen's, I just want to inquire, have we had that requirement in any RFP in the past? And I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be, I just want to be historical. Have we had that in the RFP to honor collective bargaining agreement?
What we have had and what has been before you in the past is the language that appears in this contract. In the Superior contract that you approved last year, we gave a fair trial basis to the number of employees that the contractor deemed necessary.
And how did that work?
It transitioned and people got their jobs. I'm not aware of any adverse impact to the people that occurred on the Superior campus. In fact, last month you just approved the contract for the Eau Claire campus and you approved for the Parkside campus. They assumed that the companies coming in, there was a transition that occurred at the Parkside campus. That contract started June 1st, and as far as I know, the transitions have been running smoothly. Employees have transitioned between the two companies, and as far as I know, there have not been any issues.
Excuse me, Ruth, did you want to make a comment?
The other point that I wanted to make is that we just went through a competitive RFP process where we communicated to all the vendors a certain set of standards that they all competed based on. And so if we change one of those, then it's a substantial impact. I'm a bit concerned about that. We want to go back and discuss that with our legal counsel.
Any other discussion on the motion to postpone?
I think it's a good idea if you're going to be able to talk to the lawyers and everybody else to get straight what's going on, given what you've said.
Any other discussion on the motion to postpone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion carries to postpone, and I assume that this will come through your
back in July 9th.
Your committee.
Yeah, if we're going to have on July 9th, we'd have that opportunity to meet earlier in the day.
Okay. Regent Pruitt?
Can I just suggest that in the interests of Regent Smith's committee that individual regions communicate their specific concerns that other than those that have already been articulated today, that in the form of questions or other assurances that you would like to sort of see in advance of the meeting on in advance of sort of the conversations with the
Right, let's make sure we've got all of them
I think
before
it would be
that
helpful and ensure that one way or the other, up or down on July 9th, we can
Right.
make a decision. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, whether we all agree or disagree on postponing this or not, or how it's done or not done, I agree with something John said a little while ago, and that is that we need to find a resolution so that this isn't an issue
Right. So that we
in
have
all our RFPs. That's probably I don't know that we can resolve that by July 9th, but we need to resolve that.
I think Regent Smith made a note of that.
I did.
Would you like to continue
I
with
would.
your report?
The committee approved the following items. Resolution 12E3, which creates a 7-year contract with Hold It, I think it's the way, Higher Education Group to provide bookstore and textbook rental services at UW La Crosse. And Resolution 12E4, which creates a 10-year contract with the University of Wisconsin Credit Union to provide financial service opportunities, including ATM, campus space lease, and ID debit card services at UW-Madison. On behalf of the committee, then, I move the adoption of Resolution 12E3 and Resolution 12E4.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Is there a request to remove either item from the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Concludes my
Motion
report,
carries.
Mr. President. That concludes my report, Mr.
Very
President.
good. Record time. Thank you. Thank you, Regent Smith. Now I call upon Regent Bartel to present the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee.
Thank you, President Bradley. The committee met yesterday and approved the minutes of its May meeting. We began with a report from Associate Vice President David Miller on the progress of the 2009-11 capital budget. He reported that the Joint Finance Committee approved a total statewide capital budget of approximately $512 million in new general fund supported borrowing. This is an increase of about $89 million over the last biennium and reverses the trend of the last 3 biennia in which we had decreased capital funding. Of that amount, the UW system will receive about $380 million, which is about 3/4 of the total, for 17 major projects and maintenance of existing facilities. The budget also includes $486 million for 19 major projects funded by program revenue, borrowing, and gifts. Let me just comment in regard to that news. As you probably know or probably read about, the Joint Finance Committee added 2 major capital projects to our budget. The Eau Claire Education Building was advanced enumerated for 2011-13. That's a $44 million general fund supported borrowing project. And Madison Nursing Facility was added. That's about $47 million, of which about 1/3 is gift funded. Both of those projects were on the horizon in any event. But this is the first capital budget that any of us can remember where Joint Finance Committee actually added general fund supported borrowing to our budget request. In addition, no cuts were made to our all-agency program, which is also good news. I wanted to mention that the Eau Claire project was included in our request for funding in 2011 and 13, and the Building Commission had already authorized program and design for that project. And this advanced enumeration was really quite consistent with the UW system's 6-year plan. It isn't out of the blue. And more specifically and more importantly, because it is the subject of an editorial in the State Journal this morning, the nursing facility was our priority project in the 2005-2007 budget request. It has been a priority for several biennia. It was deferred in our last budget to make way for certain other priorities and reflect the pace of fundraising that was going on. It would have been a high priority in the next biennium in any event, and given that eventuality, it is really quite beneficial that it was added, beneficial to the university that it was added to the new general fund supported borrowing in 2009-2011. Since this is new fund, well, it is beneficial in that it raises the level from which we move in the next biennium, and it also makes room for bonding authority for other projects in the 2011-2013 and subsequent biennia. So all in all, these actions are very good news for the UW system and also good news for the state. In the latter category, these are 36 major projects that the university UW system is undertaking, will generate, I am told, about 8,000 construction-related jobs and another 8,000 jobs that are related to the economic impact activity of construction projects. So we're talking about 16,000 jobs that will result from these projects. It is also good news that the Joint Finance Committee retained the Board of Regents and Building Commission's recommendation on the statewide all-agency fund for maintenance of $200 million. We've been talking about that in previous reports here, that our all-agency fund is stretched. We have difficulty repairing and maintaining buildings all over the state. The system will receive approximately $130 million of this funding for backlog maintenance. Mr. Miller also reported the Building Commission approved about $88 million for projects at its May meeting. In response to a question, Mr. Miller reported to us that we are continuing to press for our capital planning and construction flexibility proposals, which we've discussed with this board and that this board has supported, that we think will reduce inordinate delays in construction and planning will improve the process in many ways and will ultimately reduce the cost of building the projects that we support. And we were very pleased to note, as President Riley mentioned in his report, the WMC has thrown its support to that initiative, as well as the Higher Educational Business Roundtable, which was very strong in its support. So perhaps we'll get some traction on those proposals. Now, then the committee approved what I will now present as consent agenda items, and you have those items in your materials. Resolution 1.3.B, brought on by UW La Crosse, requesting approval to construct their 500-bed, $48 million residence hall project to replace two older halls that are being demolished to make room for an academic building. I can go into more detail on that if anybody is interested. We also have project 1.3.C. I'm trying to find here. Why do I? It's UW Madison. Authority to, oh yes, to seek a waiver of the statutory provisions to allow the selection of a construction manager at risk for construction of the athletic facility at UW Madison and the Wisconsin Energy Institute at UW Madison. These are, this waiver is needed for reasons of timing of these projects and will greatly facilitate their moving forward. Resolution 1.3.D is brought by UW Madison, requesting authority to grant easements to the City of Madison for access to West Madison Agricultural Research Station land for the development of sewer facilities and improvements, small parcel. Resolution 1.3.E, requesting authority to construct a forensic laboratory house at UW Platteville and to seek a waiver to allow the project to be constructed. This is interesting, by building construction management students. The students will actually construct the project. We're going to pay $140,000 for materials, but those students will construct the building, the house, and it'll be used by the Criminal Justice Department students to experience opportunities to learn crime scene investigative techniques. CSI. Well, that sounds real interesting. Then we have Resolution 1.3.F, which is brought by UW Stevens Point, requesting authority to construct the Waste Management Center project, which costs about $4.5 million, as enumerated in the 2009-11 capital budget. And that project first came to the Regents, by the way, in 2004. It is a poster child of an example of why we need the procedural reforms that capital planning that we're pressing for. And finally, Resolution 1.3.G, requesting authority to construct two UW System all-agency maintenance and repair projects, one at UW Oshkosh and one at UW Parkside, which replaces exterior windows in residential hall rooms with new energy-efficient units. And regarding these last two projects to be funded with all-agency maintenance and repair projects, we discussed, because they are both energy savers, we discussed the core strategy of the growth agenda of energy efficiency and the accountability report, which we had talked about yesterday. If you recall that goal to reduce energy usage per square foot in campus facilities by 10%, we didn't come close to that. And the goal is in fiscal year 2010 is 20%. Well, Mr. Miller said we're not likely to meet that goal either. But the committee wants to delve into this to see how we can improve our energy efficiency in these capital projects, and we will be discussing that subject and how we can better try to meet the core strategy that was proposed in these projects in the months ahead. So with these 6 resolutions, were passed unanimously by the committee, and I now move their adoption. Resolutions 1.3B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Is there a second to the motion? Second. Moved and seconded. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, that concludes the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Regent Bartel.
And they did all that in time to get here at 2 o'clock.
That's right. Next item on our agenda is the election of officers of the board. Our bylaws specify that officers of the board are elected each year at our annual meeting, the month of June. The officers hold their positions for 1 year until their successors are elected, or until they're elected. If there is only one nominee for the office, the election is by voice vote. If there is more than one, then the election is by ballot. And the terms of office begin at the same time that Regent Thomas would release all of the responsibility that she has as being a member of the board.
That's the Croisny?
It's the same thing. Am I right, Madam Secretary? It's that same process. So I would now entertain nominations for office of President. Regent Smith.
President Bradley, I'd like to nominate Chuck Pruitt. I'd like to speak to it after a second.
It's been moved and seconded. Regent Smith.
Chuck, I have cut down my remarks because we're late from about 20 minutes to maybe a minute here. But
Take off. No problem.
Say everything you
Just
wrote.
go with it.
Just go with it, whatever.
As long as you
Use the entire remarks that I had.
Just read it as he wrote it.
Yeah, Chuck, I can't read some of your writing. No, I've had a chance to work with Chuck prior to coming on the board. We served as co-chairs of the aforementioned today Kobe Committee on Baccalaureate Expansion, or COBE, and then I served on the Business Finance and Audit Committee when Chuck was the chair. Terms like thoughtful, innovative, collaborative, and certainly having a good sense of humor have served Chuck well, as he has, I think, served on this board, and I think will be essential as you now, I think, assume this leadership post that you're going to have. Our current board is fortunate to have one past president sitting right across from me, David Walsh, and President Bradley, maybe not too soon for his wishes. Today we'll be assuming that title as well. Both David and Mark have provided this board, the system, and really the state of Wisconsin with extraordinary leadership in very challenging and difficult times. And we're very fortunate to have, lucky to have someone like Chuck coming on who I think can provide that same type of leadership in the year ahead. A couple weeks ago, the Technical College Board meeting, we recognized Superintendent Brewmaster for her years of service on that board. And I commented then that I admire, among many things, about her passion for the young people of the state of Wisconsin and providing them educational opportunities. I think Chuck Pruitt has demonstrated that same passion for our students and for really our higher educational system that gives them the opportunity to fulfill their dreams and their hopes. So I'm just very pleased to be able to nominate Chuck for our president for the coming year.
Rebuttal, just on...
He doesn't have much time.
Thank you, Regent Smith.
Are you going to have any other nominations before we hear all that?
Well, I am the procedural whiz, as I've demonstrated.
You demonstrated that.
I was just going to call for any other nominations. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Regent Pruitt.
Not speak long, but I was just going to say that I want to obviously thank all my colleagues for your confidence in me. It is a great honor to serve with you on this board and a special privilege to serve as president. I will do my best, but I will obviously, as will become apparent quite soon, need all your help. Mark, I just wanted to echo what Brent, thank you for those kind comments. You could have gone a little longer. We'll talk about that later. But I just want to echo, it is an extraordinary privilege to follow in your footsteps. While I'm not sure how I feel about the day when both you and Regent Walsh will be looking down on us from portraits, you have certainly earned your place there. And your commitment and wise leadership over the last 2 years have been nothing short of extraordinary. And on behalf of your colleagues, the 170,000 students and 40,000 staff, and in particular the people of Wisconsin, thank you for all you've done in the last 2 years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Chuck, thank you for your comments. I might. He is. I can see it. The next item on our agenda is the nomination for the office of Vice President. Regent Crane.
It is my privilege to place in nomination the name of Regent Michael Spector for the position of Vice President, providing you still want that after this morning.
I will second that.
Mike, as many of you know, is completing his 4th year on the board as a regent, and I believe I can say with a lot of confidence that he has earned the respect and the confidence of all his fellow regents, as well as the leaders of the UW system and our campuses. He brings to us many skills and many kinds of abilities and attributes that will serve us well, including his professional expertise, which has been the topic of conversation in the last couple of days, his experiences in all levels of public education in this state, his balanced and especially his balanced and very thoughtful approach to issues, his commitment to ensuring superior educational opportunity for the state of Wisconsin and all who reside here, and his collegial and respectful leadership style that I think brings out the best in everybody, including us. He has a willingness, as we've seen, to undertake any task that he's been asked to undertake, even those that have some unpleasant challenges. He's tireless in carrying them out. He has good humor and very open and encouraging to all views, and still has the ability to help to move us ahead. I have appreciated working with him, and I know that as one of our key leaders, he will serve us with excellence. It's my privilege to offer his name.
And Regent Bartel seconded that nomination.
I would just like to say that since Regent and President-elect Pruitt is a non-lawyer, he will need a lawyer at his left hand. No, I wanted to say that I met Mike Spector, I think it's about 27 years ago. I was approached by Mike to make a change in my career and join Quarles and Brady, and it was largely because of his entreaty that I did so, and I've worked with him throughout that period of time. The last 10 years or so, I don't remember how many it is, Mike has been the chairman of our firm, and if you think dealing with Chapter 17 was difficult, dealing with 400 lawyers and trying to keep them all headed in the same direction is a real feat, and he did so masterfully. As you've all seen, he is wonderful in handling differing views and getting people to move toward the center. And he has always been able, I've observed this throughout the period of time that I've known him, and he has great skills in that area. He's always calm. He never gets excited. The rest of us get very excited. He's always under control and with an eye on where we want to end up. And I think he will be a terrific leader of this board, consistent with the leadership that we've had in the past and that we're getting next year.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Or Regent Walsh?
Well, I don't have a nomination. I wanted to say something about him, but I
Please.
didn't know which motion you were on.
Please. I know right where I'm going.
I just wanted to say that in support of the nomination, that I met Mike about 28 years ago. I wasn't all that impressed then. He was with a different law firm. But
What did he think of you?
well, it didn't make any difference. After today, it won't make any difference. But I wanted to thank him for his help on the disciplinary of the faculty. That was a very important committee that we had earlier when I was in a different position. And I think that was an important, because it also sent a message to the faculty and the staff of the entire system. Finally, until today, I was pretty convinced he should be president, but now that if he can commit to due process for this board, I'd feel a lot better. And so I'm going to vote for him because I'm going to give him that opportunity. But if he doesn't, he'll hear from me. Finally, I did want to say that, and I didn't know we were past talking about Mark. Mark was vice president when I was president, and it was a team, and whatever we did right, it was because of his help, and I wanted to congratulate him on a wonderful 2 years picking up the pieces. And also, I will always remember that speech about getting up in the morning why he was late to our photo session, because he wanted to change the procedure of the meetings, and you had this dream. I always thought that was a mark of great leadership, because he kind of went out on those rice paddies and looked around. There was nobody there behind him. And that just was the kind of leadership we had from him, that he moved and saw issues and was willing to change. And I wanted to thank you also, in addition to support Mike.
Well, thank you, David. Any other nominations for vice president? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Congratulations, Vice President.
Yes. For just a second.
President Riley.
A thought or two from your president of the system. You know, you will not find a harder working, more rational, more balanced, more committed, more goal-oriented board president than Mark Bradley has been. And besides, it became apparent to me early on that he married well, and it became apparent to me in that connection that Justice Bradley frequently rules him out of order, and he's got no sharp edges as a result. It's all smooth. This is one smooth dude. So it really has been my pleasure and privilege to work with you and get to know you, and I've learned a lot, and I'll miss you in the role. And I guess I'd say what you see with Mark is what you get. It's all about unselfish service. So I want to thank you for contributing that service to the university.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
And let me say I look forward to working with our new president and vice president, and I'd say with Chuck's election that the textbook publishers ought to watch out. And my goal with Mike's election will be to get him excited, Jeff, in the next year or two. I think I'll be able to do it.
Good. Thank you, Kevin.
Mark, may I say one thing? Just
yes.
Thank you, Judy, for your comments, and thank you, Jeff. I'm glad you made the decision you did. I think we're both sorry Regent Walsh didn't make the right decision, but he's had to live with it for all these years. And I look forward very much to working with Chuck, who I've come to know very well and admire greatly, as well as echoing his words about working with everybody else, and Kevin and his people. And I am very optimistic by nature, and I'm optimistic we can continue to do good things for the kids of Wisconsin and elsewhere. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much, Mike. We also have the task of electing a secretary of the board, the assistant secretary, our trust officer, and our assistant trust officers. The incumbents for those positions are Judith Temby as our secretary, Cheryl Goplin, assistant secretary, Debbie Durkin, trust officer, Pat Brady and Doug Herr, assistant trust officers. Is there a nomination to elect these individuals to those offices?
We do.
We do. And that has been seconded. Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, no. That motion carries. Congratulations. Are there any other resolutions or communications or petitions or memorials that anyone wants to raise? Good. Any unfinished or additional business? Okay, I would ask for a 10-minute recess, and we will resume here for